It's time for Type 40 Live, the live stream Doctor Who magazine show here, as always on Rumble, X, YouTube, and on Facebook too. And we were in front of a live chat full of fellow friends, fans, and companions, just like you. And whoever's your doctor, wherever you jumped on board with Doctor Who, whatever's your flavour, there's always something to set your time rotor spinning. Doctor Who's global fandom is out in the cold, screaming for answers. They seem pretty obvious to most of us, don't they? All in the wake, of course, of the update on the series status from the BBC last week. There's more news and more talk, more angst, and always more opinions between the cracks. And if this really is a state of emergency again, should we be breaking this glass anytime soon? It's all coming up on this early edition of your Type 40 Live. Hello, and you'd have to have been stuck in the Pandorica for the last week not to know that the crisis we warned you about hit in a big, big way. And sure enough, there have been further revelations and quotes and rumours too to pick our way through. Us all collectively together, of course. I'm Dan Hadley, Birmingham's King of the Geeks. Welcome back to Type 40. What a week. My head's not stopped spinning yet. Believe it or not, there's a lot more to talk about too, and that includes you too, of course. Whoever you are, we'll find out the details of all of that in a moment. Who were the returning familiar faces and any newcomers too. We've got a panel to bring on, the usual mix of good eggs and bad wolves. They're raring to go and break loose of this and everything else. So what's been going on and where does it come from? I think I've got a fair idea about what's happening. I've tried to keep an eye on the view screen, but whatever I may have missed, I think that one of the others may have picked up on it. So between us collectively, the picture should become clearer, clearish. Who knows? Results are always going to vary, but we're in this until the bitter end. You could be pleased to learn. That's myself and, of course, Charlotte Shields.
Hello, everybody. It's not gone quiet at all, has it, Dan? It's sort of the opposite right now.
Time to breathe. The other day, I think I described it as letting the tyres out of Doctor Who a little, but just when it feels that that's happening, there's more, and then there's more, and then there's more.
Yeah, it's sort of, I had a fun weekend of just watching Classic Who again, so I sort of have learned about this during the week, and it's sort of just like, yeah, I think I said interesting times in one of those streams we did a couple, like, it feels like weeks ago, but it's days, and I think that's very much the case.
Interesting times and places and spaces. The Pandorica was somewhat of a tight spot for the Doctor to get stuck into way back in, was that 2010? Long time ago now.
It was Matt's first series, so whenever series 5, because it was the finale for that.
I sometimes think that it might be actually good to spend a little time recuperating in the Pandorica. At least he got a telly.
Yeah, and Amy didn't look too bad, did she? She also had a spin in it.
I think it's probably they've got good Wi-Fi in there too, so you could you could keep on everything in Britain, at least for the time being. There's been breaking news on that as well today. Oh, I don't know if Gary Akers knows anything about that being on the other side of the world. Gary, help us all.
You know, if I would actually rather, I wouldn't want to spend time in this. I mean, I'd rather spend time in that little outdoor TARDIS bathroom that you showed us the other day. I'd rather spend my time there than in this.
Yeah,
that would be much more pleasant.
Well, at least they'd
as long as it doesn't move while you're in it.
Yes. I want to give everybody an update. I've had a very productive weekend. I've only got one more verse to go on my new version of Doctor in Distress.
Oh.
So as soon as I get that done, I'll be debuting it for you all, a cappella.
Well, the beauty of it now is I thought you were going to ask us to sing it. We're all going to take a verse each.
Oh, all right, everybody. Everybody's listening. You heard Dan. He just committed himself and Charlotte to this. So I will be. I'll be sending them both. I'll be splitting it up.
Well, I was going to suggest that in the era of AI, we could resurrect Tina Turner to do a few lines, and Michael Jackson and George Michael and people. The dearly departed. How do you think
Couple of
Prince
Beatles.
would handle the middle eight of Doctor in Distress?
Yeah, I mean, I'm having to get creative with some of the verses, but I think it's going to be a winner.
I think many people will be happy to spend some time in the Pandorica if they heard us crooning that one out. But we shall see. We shall see. We've got some comments building up already. Thank you, everyone. There's a lot to get stuck into, and people to catch up with in the Whoniverse. Are we still calling it the Whoniverse? I think we have to for the time being, even because it sounds, in light of recent developments, it sounds quite funny, doesn't it? Will the Whoniverse also disappear up the time vortex? I suppose we'll know in good time. All of this, of course, is in the wake of pause being hit on Doctor Who. All of Doctor Who, for all of time. No, well, maybe not for all of time, but certainly for a significant period of time. We'd heard rumours. In fact, most of them started here at Type 40. I don't think any of us were expecting the announcement that came last Wednesday as of time of recording. An update on the future of Doctor Who that came from the BBC. The Bad Wolf were out. The Doctor Who was out to tender this time, and I suppose it'll all come out in the wash at some point. Maybe if we all slip into this and hit one of the buttons or something, by the time it reopens, whatever period of time between now and then may have passed. And will we get to the CBeebies show inside there? That's the one shaft of light that I think the fandom have been left with in part of that press release. I don't think there's many fans that are sort of clinging on to that as any kind of hope, Gary, but it's something.
You know what? Hope is, I would never be anyone to deny people hope. Sometimes hope is the only thing that gets us through a day. But so you got to have hope. But at the same time, hope is not a strategy, as we know. But we can't, we just have to keep our fingers crossed, be patient. I think it's a little bit too soon to be storming the BBC with protest signs saying, hurry up with the tender, give it a little bit of time.
And keep a watchful eye. Give it some time, Charlotte, give it some time.
Yeah, I said this before. The last thing they should do is rush to get a new person in at this point. It needs to be seriously looked at, seriously worked out, and actually have a bit of let's have a proper plan, which would be nice.
A plan?
I know, isn't that crazy?
I mean, you'd like to think that when there was so much unsettled in terms of like not known, now a lot more things, we do know a lot more things. So I'm hoping everybody, I don't know if this is a futile wish, but everybody just like take a breath, downplay the toxicity talk and just kind of, get on with things until there's news, everybody stop the hate and the toxicity and everything.
I think it's okay to take some time, all of us to breathe. And it doesn't mean we've got to let anybody off the hook.
Oh, absolutely not. Yes.
Creatively and ideologically. Yes. But everybody, it's been an intense few years. Even when it's been quiet, it's been intense. And the various players, well, gradually one by one, they are indeed speaking. First of all, a word or two. I wondered what he was going to say, if anything at all. Christopher Eccleston at the weekend. Now, he was a guest on Desert Island Flicks there in Tyneside Cinema, recorded live. So it's sort of a live podcast interview series where people pick their favourite movies and they chat about them Desert Island Discs style. With a guy who looks like Captain Birdseye, it seems, as the host. So this is how this figures out. Christopher Eccleston, he was asked by a member of the live audience there what he thought about what was going on with Doctor Who. And all he would say is that it was regrettable how things had gone and that he hopes the BBC figure something out because he said that Doctor Who is important. Exact words, Doctor Who is important, which I thought was very good of him because he's got a checkered history with Doctor Who that in some senses is quite personal. It didn't stop him from reaching out on Instagram. Well, I say reaching out, tagging on Instagram. Russell T Davies, his old boss, he said, so this is what Chris Eccleston put out the other day. LOL, laugh out loud, laugh my arse off even, at Russell T Davies 63. And he's not just touching the grass, Chris Eccleston, he's lying back in it and sniffing and taking in the aroma of wild weeds and everything, ragwort and whatever else he is. I think he's in a farmer's field somewhere. So it would seem that this man really knows how to hold a grudge, Gary.
That might be the most content look I've ever seen on Christopher Eccleston's face. I posted somewhere, I can't remember where, because I was, posting and commenting and stuff like a madman since middle of last week. But one of my first thoughts that I posted is Christopher Eccleston is having a great week. And this picture seems to prove that.
Yeah, I think if anybody has a right to speak right now, and if anybody should comment, it's Chris. Because of, like you said, he had we will never get the full story. Yeah. And I don't think we should, to be honest, because that's personal to Chris and what he went through. But just off the bits we got of him, you can tell he had a real torrid time with that production team. And that Billy was sort of the highlight and the light for him there, but everything, a lot of the other parts of it wasn't. So I think he's probably Saul. I wouldn't be surprised if he's saying to himself, this was always going to happen. And he was just sort of waiting a little bit because of Russell's sort of tendencies he saw when he was working on the show.
I think that how long was it, Charlotte? 1.5 years, 2 years ago, that famous incident with him and Billy on the stage, where that became the meme.
It was 2-3 years.
2-3 years, and even then, nobody openly dismissed him as saying, "Oh, he's a crank. Why don't we be grateful that Russell T gave him this great opportunity?" Blah, blah, blah. Nobody ever dismissed what he was saying like that. So I think there was always this feeling, correct me if I'm wrong, there was always this feeling that something legitimate caused this deep reaction in him. And it wasn't a case of, is he deluded, deranged, or just misdirected, whatever. Everybody thought there is something there, even though, as Charlotte said, we may never know what it was, but everybody acknowledged whatever it was, there was something there.
This is following him round, obviously, because he takes interviews about the subject of his career broadly. But Doctor Who, despite the fact that he was only working on the show for a year, it's a really prominent part, Charlotte. And so somebody's always going to bring it up, aren't they? Even on something like this.
Well, he was the start of 2005. He was the Doctor that sort of had to prove that the Doctor could come back, in a way. It's like before I talked about how important Pat was to prove regeneration as a concept and to prove that the show could go beyond Bill. I think Chris had that massive weight on his shoulders in 2005 to sort of say, I'm going to be the Doctor and I'm going to show how this character is still incredibly important and relevant and can work on screen again. That was not a small feat Chris had to take on. And I think he's very aware of that. And also I think because he has been doing the Big Finish stuff the last few years now, he's in a lot better space to talk about Doctor Who. So I wouldn't be as surprised if people knew before it wasn't something you could bring up in interviews to him for multiple reasons and very legit ones. And he's sort of come back into the fold how he wants to, which is Big Finish. So I think Doctor Who's a lot more of an open topic than it's ever been for Chris, which I think is brilliant for him personally.
I think that if someone blacklists you from working in your home nation, in your chosen field, an area in which you'd had a successful career at that point for the best part of 2 decades, he's got a right to still feel a certain kind of way about that. When, as far as I know, apologies have never really been offered. We shall see. But yeah, Christopher Eccleston there on Instagram. There's more too. We've got this from Sophia Miles here. End of an era. It was a true honor to be part of this beautiful show, especially during its golden age. Madame de Pompadour will remain with me forever, and I will treasure the memories of her for eternity. I hope we see you again soon, Doctor. All my love, Doctor Who and Whovians. Sophia Miles, really lovely woman. She's got so much time for the Doctor Who fandom. She's always posting positively about her experiences on the show. She interacts with fans on social media very, very freely. And as we know, she's a big old geek too. One of her lifelong friend, Ian David Diaz, he's known her since she was like a teenager, something like that. He can tell you all sorts of stories. Oh yeah, Ian's known her for years. Didn't you know?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he could tell some stories. But Sophia's there over on X. Go and tell her how much Madame de Pompadour meant to you if you're a fan of that particular episode. There's more too from Tim at the Missing Episodes podcast, friend of the show. He said, my tuppence worth. The path to there being good Doctor Who on the telly is eased by there not being more bad Doctor Who on the telly. Again, Tim is a very polite man. Again, a very positive, very upbeat, community-focused man. So this is as close as a diss, I think, as you'll ever get from Tim. But it certainly does chime with a lot of how people are feeling, Gary. We've heard this a lot in the live chat and from our friends on Type 40.
Can I do... I got to speak as an American here.
Yeah.
I've got to just, in general, commend British people for having just the unique ability to make the most gracious slams, and it's like, being able to, it's like inserting the knife with a smile and with the pinky out as you drink tea, but inserting the knife at the same time. You all have the unparalleled ability to do that, and I love it. That's why I want
Gary, it's why we make good villains in film.
That's right. Tim's next gig, he's playing the bad guy in the next Die Hard movie. He's up for that. Yeah, so if that's what you think about British manners and British sensibilities, what I'm wondering is, where do you stand on those Australians? Oh dear, terrible lot. Oh, hello, Matt. Hello, real life time traveler. Good to see you.
Yeah, get that shot across the bow.
You sound like you're in a cave.
Is there a reason that you sound like a vader?
No, I don't know. I've had so much trouble. I'm going to pull out the old bike. I had to dust it off.
You sound like Sauron from Lord of the Rings.
I give up. I don't know what's going on with it. I'll fix it.
Live from the Satan pit, it's Mr. Matt Pott there, so maybe he'll work that out. More social media coverage here. So Aaron Sparrow, so this the TV, so he's the TV writer and showrunner of Darkwing Duck all those years ago, and now working in the independent comics sector. Dynamite Comics, he's done a lot of work for Disney. He said this: we go now to a live look at Russell T Davies exiting his work on the Doctor Who franchise, and there's a pic of the late great Burt Reynolds and something's exploding.
I actually think that's from when he did this series of kind of almost like straight to video stuff in the very late 80s, early like 90s, called like Malone or something. He did like 3 or 4 of them, and that looks like a shot. I can tell from the hair. That looks like a shot from one of those.
I think Aaron's really got that mood bang on as well. Aaron's another American, big old geek. Go and follow him on X. Fabulous writer and creative, lots of independent comics projects on the go at any given time. And clearly a Doctor Who fan too, certainly has an ear, an eye for how we're all feeling. There's this as well from our friend Robert Meyer Burnett, RMB. Rob says, as part of securing the next phase of the show for future generations and in line with the BBC's charter and agreement requirements, the BBC will put Doctor Who out to competitive tender this year. The gauntlet has been thrown down. So who will step up to unfuck this? That's a very, very Rob way of phrasing things. But again, bang on the money from RMB. Go and find him on X and on YouTube on the Burnett Work. There's more. There's a lot more. We'll get stuck into more of it as it goes along. But this is when
Do I sound better?
like that.
No,
you don't.
You still sound like Omega. I think I read something in the chat.
Don't give up. Keep trying, seriously.
This update has sent ripples throughout all of pop culture and into the mainstream media too. Again, it'd be nice if people were talking about Doctor Who for positive reasons. That does seem to be escaping us yet again. Whether we'll be able to look back and laugh about any of this in the coming months and years, obviously it's far too early to say. The BBC's own statement, I wouldn't describe it as passive-aggressive as such, but it was very, very corporate, very, very clean, very clear. And yet, it's not what we're used to, is it? It's such a distinct shift in tone. That's what set a lot of the fandom at sea. Russell T Davies didn't make things any better. The cartoon was nice. I think you said on last Thursday's show, Gary, he should have probably stopped with the cartoon. You're quite right. And he went on to be incredibly passive-aggressive with the audience. And I think there's lots of sort of barbed comments and insinuations in there. Not his finest hour, but at least the old windbag has finally gone. But there was this too. Now, this from another big graphic. This Doctor Who will return. A very stark declaration from Pete McTighe, also posting on Instagram. He's another shy and retiring type, very clearly. I admire Pete's confidence. That's always nice to see. And there was a full message again, just like Russell's. After the fact too. Obviously, Pete is a British Australian writer, a producer, and showrunner in his own right. Huge Doctor Who fan, a lifelong Doctor Who fan. We have to accept that. And a part of the Doctor Who family, you know, he's done Mythmakers with Keith. He's done all those kinds of things. Very, very active, and does seem very invested in both the past of the show, the classic series, and in the future. And yet, when we get stuck into this statement, it's sort of more of the same. Matt, how are you getting on?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good.
Yay!
I'm back.
You sound like you again. We've got Dark Matt and Light Matt, haven't we? It's
I already missed the Sauron, Matt.
You should do entire videos.
I love technology. I just love it.
You could launch your own channel and call it Cockdoom. I don't know where I got the inspiration from. Cockdoom.
No,
That's right.
There you go.
No.
Just do that and get yourself a mask or something like that.
I feel like I need to have a wash now.
Well, you may want to skip the wash until after we've got through Pete McTighe's statement here, because he's got. So he's your countryman, sort of, Pete McTighe.
We're totally different. Do not attack me in the comments. Do not attack me in the chat. We are not related in any fashion.
So Pete said, I know yesterday was a lot. So he published this on Friday. I know Thursday. I know yesterday was a lot. And it was. This is a sentiment that I think we can all respond to. But brave heart, because the show that we love will return, and relatively soon. Because this isn't the 1990s all over again. Since those dark times, Russell brought the show back in triumphant fashion. Its popularity soared to new heights, and the Doctor is now a beloved British institution in the tradition of Sherlock Holmes or Paddington or James Bond. All of this is true. All of this is true, with the exception of that one relatively innocent section of 3 words, and relatively soon. I can't see how Pete can possibly know this, and this does feel very tonally similar to the kind of stuff we're used to from Russell himself, Charlotte.
Yeah, it's funny how like the people that are literally out the door at the moment, because Bad Wolf were also they've been let go. They're no longer making it, and Pete was very much part of Bad Wolf as well.
Yeah, long time.
That suddenly they can tell us about a future, which
Yeah.
I think I agree with you. I think a lot of these people, they will not be part of the discussions right now. That's what we're all sort of have said between ourselves. They're not going to be part of the boardroom discussions. They're not going to be part of the tender process unless they want to put their names forward. I don't know. Maybe, I know Pete has made stuff without Doctor Who, like the Wentworth stuff, and he's got some producer credits beyond Doctor Who. So, I don't know, maybe he'll put his name in. But this is the thing that's narking me a bit about a lot of these comments I'm seeing coming out now from people like Pete and Russell. It's just that people need a bit of time. People need to process what's happened. Like, a lot of the fan base, this has really hit them hard. And it's something that for some of them, they really didn't see coming. So it's sort of like rocked them a bit. And you can see that with some of the responses. So the last thing they need right now is being given more empty words without any sort of detail or real thing that you can promise. Relatively soon could mean anything. It's a vague statement. And I just think that's the last thing we need right now as a fan base.
If you speak to somebody in their 30s or 40s about what they count as being soon, compared to what, say, the target audience for Doctor Who, a 10 or 11-year-old, how they view as soon, it's when you're older, 4 or 5 years doesn't seem that long. But if you're 10 and the series doesn't come back until you're 15, it's like you're a different person. Yeah. So I can see that Pete is trying to help. I know he's trying to help, but I'm not sure that this is what we need to hear. There are so many more stories to be told, he continues. But while we wait, celebrate the fact that the show we love is also loved by the BBC and has been guaranteed a long-term future. Now, this is where I think he starts to over-egg it somewhat. I would argue that the series isn't loved by the BBC. I think they're well aware it's an intellectual property, that it is a potential cash cow, and they view it simply as a property, as an investment, as an asset. That's my take on it, Matt. And to be fair, I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing, but I think that Pete shouldn't necessarily be as florid as he is with this. I think this is where things start to get a bit shaky.
It's funny how those in the industry haven't just said, hey, look, we know that we stuffed up and we're going to just take our time now and try and give you the best possible show that we really wanted to envision for the future. But they can't do that. They just can't help themselves. They have to. I think also the issue is, and the difference between the last hiatus to this one is the fact that we have a lot more kids that have been and also need therapy. And to cope with something like this, the loss of a show like this, for us growing up, Dan, you know yourself, and the same with Gary and not so much Charlotte, but we could just move on. We could just move on, go outside and play or whatever.
Yeah.
But these kids today, they hold on, and whether or not it's from autism or some other thing, you know, they've had some sort of paracetamol or something all their lives or whatever. It's just, they've got to realize this is life. Things get cancelled. And, you know, I'm surprised they didn't offer therapy sessions for this lot. The BBC said, free therapy sessions, come along and we'll sort you out, you know, because we know that this is going to hit you hard.
I hadn't looked at it that way.
No one can handle this.
I'm surprised there's not a helpline. I mean, there obviously there was when Take That split up 30 years ago. Moving on, Pete says, and meanwhile, what a perfect time to delve into the back catalogue. Charlotte's been doing that. Scroll through iPlayer, where almost the entire history of the show is laid out. Relish the beautifully restored classic Blu-ray box sets, watch the short films on YouTube, or leaf through a Target novelization. Go back to the beginning, start the journey over, binge a Doctor you've never seen before, meet the Axons, battle the Pteroleptils, cook with the Candyman, or play chess with Fenric. See, I like this.
Yes.
Notice he doesn't mention go listen to a Doctor Who podcast. He doesn't mention podcasters, do you, Pete? Funny that.
I mean, to a degree, I think that they're giving these people a lot of false hope, and they really should just say, "Hey, you know, we need to just take a break. If you want to continue on with the adventures of Doctor Who, then you know, listen to Big Finish or watch YouTube or something, but just
I appreciate that Pete is, in all sincerity, Pete is trying to help.
Yes.
But I think that he's trying to do a Russell, and it's actually
ham-fisted. It's ham-fisted.
I just think he's overdoing it a bit. I mean, when he talks about having a guaranteed a long-term future, no future of any kind is going to be guaranteed until a tender gets accepted. This is what these characters can't seem to accept. It's as if they're skipping the whole process.
But they're doing it on purpose, though, Dan. They're doing it on purpose. You can see they're not willing to tell people that the reality of the situation. The reality of the situation is, and I'm going to swear here, he totally and utterly effed up.
I agree.
Russell effed up. They're not willing to admit. This is the major cause. They're not willing to accept their failure. And the issue is they keep jumping it. They talk about something else. Look over here, look over here, look over here. They really need to just admit they got it wrong. You got it wrong, Russell. You got it wrong. And you just bad casting, bad writing, you were on some sort of ideological kick and no one followed you. And I've been thinking lately, since the announcement, whether or not this was murder of a show. And I think that may be too strong a word. I think it is an assassination. Yeah. I think it is a character assassination. They have used this property to end their means, which has been ideological fuckship, really.
They thought that there'd be enough gas left in the tank of this that by the time they'd got through indoctrinating us all, that we would get on board with this entire program and everything would be fine and Doctor Who would be transformed. We as viewers, as a viewership, I should say, would be transformed, so they'd have shed the people that they find deplorable and undesirable, and recruited all of these other people who are completely in line with them. It's totally far lefty playbook 101 reasoning that shed the people you don't agree with, create an echo chamber, and then move on in triumph. But it always goes the same way. Pete ends with this statement, and know, Charlotte, that the Doctor will return, because honestly, he will outlive us all.
Here's the thing. All of us that have been talking on the panel, other videos I've seen and other people in the fandom, we've all said Doctor Who will come back at some point. In different words, we have basically had that sentiment.
No one's ever denied that.
Because yes, I do think when Pete was saying it's not like the last time, I do think there is a big difference that the BBC, I think parts of the BBC and the people who actually know Doctor Who for what it can do, fully understand if you get the right people in, if you get the right actor in this role, if you get good writing, if you get a really good sort of advertising, if you get all those things right, this show can take off. Because it did in 2005. Nobody can deny that. It was such an outside odd chance in some cases that 2005 would work. So I think there's parts of the BBC that fully know that, whereas in the 80s, I think a lot of the BBC had just completely fallen out of love with the show. For them, it was this sort of quaint little thing that was just a bit of an embarrassment.
It was antiquated.
Yeah, I don't think that's the same. I agree with that, and that's what Pete is saying in there. But the problem is that the other big difference is in the 80s, it went away quietly. it's sort of just petered away without all the noise and the embarrassment and the sort of the press attention that this has got right now. And like we said, it's gone away, not in any sort of strength, as a joke. Billy Piper's face is now being used to mock the show before this announcement happened.
When social media has changed things so
Yes, that's
much,
another big thing.
and when the hiatus happened the first time around, I was none the wiser as to, it's been cancelled or anything like that. I had no news of that whatsoever I wasn't with the Doctor Who clubs or anything like that. So I guess in a way I was a normie. But I always just checked the listings to see if a new show was starting or something like that. And the only thing I remember being so excited when they announced Dimensions in Time, because they had the promotional of Pete Davison in the costume, and I was like, a full episode or whatever. That's how I envisioned it, And then suddenly it just disappeared again. Well, although we wouldn't have had that shown here because we didn't. It totally disappeared again, and I thought, what happened to that? What happened to that show? So, it wasn't until that movie that I finally realized, oh my gosh, it has been gone 7 years, but there's this yearning for it. In between, I had books that were released. There were omnibuses. There were of comics. There was a book called Time Frame, which actually caught me up on the lore of all the thing that I
love that.
Everything that I missed out on learning the history of Doctor Who. That was the first time I'd ever gone back to the Hartnell era. I just didn't have, because the magazines were so expensive here. And so, I was looking at probably about £5 each or whatever for a magazine, which was extraordinarily high.
And I think wherever we were in the world, Matt, we were sort of sent into our own little corners of the fandom to explore the series and its legacy in completely different ways, depending on where we live, because of how accessible or inaccessible that it was. And obviously, that Pete is quite right. That's in some senses, the world is completely different now. We're all connected. We can share how we're all feeling about this at the same time. And I know that Pete will have been disappointed with this. I do believe him when he said that, when he appeals to that fellow feeling, that the other day was a lot. I think it was probably a lot for him as well. And I certainly think it was a lot for Russell, which is why he's reacted in the way that he has, because he knows deep down he's responsible for all of this. But as to what all these pretty words are going to ultimately solve, I just think that they're already starting to feel empty, and I don't think many people are going to get much consolation from that. I don't know if the BBC are pushing the iPlayer at the moment, if they're aware that it's made it into the mainstream, and they should be saying, okay, rediscover Doctor Who. That's what they should do in time. Rediscover Doctor Who through the iPlayer and give the Whoniverse thing a bit of a rethink, a bit of a repoint, and then the kind of the situation that Pete is pointing to, maybe that will appear, and that will in time hopefully channel back into the show and help re-energize interest in it and reconnect those various different junctions in even a casual viewer's life, whereby they've looked at the show or found the show, caught the show, and it's made a difference to them. I think that's what he's trying to appeal to. It's just that right here, right now, when we can see what's going on, and we all know when we've been gaslit, and that's not, Pete hasn't done that, but we all know how it's made us feel. And so I think that in some ways it's okay to allow us to be angry. Angry is a perfectly reasonable emotion to feel, and certainly we should be allowed to wallow a little in our disappointment and disillusionment, Matt.
I really think it's unfair of them to give just this false hope to this generation, and in the last decade, another generation have grown up, whether you like it or not. A generation have grown up on this, on the female Doctor and Gatwa, and especially in England, and to have that taken away, I don't think the cope mechanism is there for this lot. And that's my worry, is that some people may take this to heart. They're just not used to this sort of like a 20-year show. This show went for 20 years and suddenly it's gone. And I don't think they've been invested in a show like that. And, you know, yes, it'll probably affect some of the people who have made money from this as well, because what else are they going to do but talk Doctor Who? They may even have to look at classic for once, you know?
Well,
and
I want to move on. I want to move on now, really from this. But I think that the things that Pete is looking at and the things that he's making an appeal to, Gary, are, I think if we take them at face value, it's never going to be bad advice to watch more Doctor Who, is it?
Yeah. So, quick positives and negatives about Pete's statement. I do honestly, admittedly resonate with, I think it was the third screen you showed about, well, you know, you can go back and read, you know, Target books, which I know, at least for me, Dan, probably you too, was like an integral part of my initial, you know, Who fandom was the books for stories you never thought you'd actually see. And then all of those examples, which I note are all from classic, you know, the Axons, the Candyman, Fenric, he's all classic examples. So in a way, not taking away from giving people the breathing room to feel like they want to feel now, but I do kind of see what he's saying, which is basically, even if it's too soon, where he's saying Doctor Who is as dead as you want it to be. Because if you don't want it to be, then there's these avenues that you can go to kind of keep it alive for you, whether it's the Blu-ray sets or Target books or whatever. I do those first couple screens, though, it's abundantly clear, at least to me, that he's playing the corporate game of he's circling the wagons around RTD. And because I think the reason, and Matt's question as well, and I think Charlotte, which is, well, why don't they wait? I think they are desperate not to let the narrative set in and harden that Russell killed the show. Because if that settles in and becomes the truth, you know, then that's it. They won't be able to do anything about that. So I think everybody is trying to push back against the narrative. No, it's still alive. Russell didn't get it canceled. Russell didn't kill it, because no, it's going to come back. It's still alive. No, because if they don't do that, the narrative will set.
I think their arms are locked and they're forming a chain, not necessarily around Russell T Davies, but around the intellectual property. Whether they're sincere in this sort of protective, almost fatherly way of speaking to us, let's say brotherly way of speaking to us, I couldn't say. I don't know these gentlemen, but I do think that infantilizing us is never going to be a good move. I would point out that I'm curious. I know you can knock up these things on any app in 3 or 4 minutes, but just why is Pete McTighe so certain of all of this, that it won't be too long at all that he would concoct that graphic and lead with that? Come to think of it, why is Jane Tranter of Bad Wolf so confident that the series will stay in Cardiff? Stick with us here at Type 40. We're going to dig into some of this in due course. Let's take a look in the comments.
Hi guys, and welcome to Type 40.
Thank you everybody for your patience. We're back with yet more, and so are you. You can't get enough of it for the time being. I don't know if it's like car crash viewing or listening. The whole thing, it is a bit of a spectator sport at the moment, being a Doctor Who fan. But the way that we all feel about it, the connection with the show, it's undeniably personal. And so if we can't all get together and compare and contrast, and here and now, then when can we? Crimpling Doubloon is there in the live chat. Don't panic, Captain Mannering style. I couldn't agree more. And Farsight describes it similar to what you've just described it, Gary, between Russell, Stephen Moffat and Pete McTighe. They're circling the wagon. Yeah. Russell T Davies and his decision to play them down. David describes it as a lack of humility from Russell in particular, the gauze, as well as the constant lies we talked about from before. Matt, it's been difficult because we don't mind being hyped. I certainly don't mind a bit of hyperbole even. But when you're being bullshitted, it's a different question.
Well, that's what I'm saying, though, too, Dan, because when Doctor Who quietly went away, they never went and asked, Barry Letts what he thought of, the show. They never. Why do we care about what these freaking idiots think? That's what I want to know.
Well, we live
because
in the
they're the
publicity
reason
age,
why.
don't we?
Yeah, but I don't care.
I think also
the show has been shuffled into the ground and smashed into a billion pieces.
Well, really
and
quickly,
they are responsible. Don't be saying,
Matt, in all fairness, I think that's partly why, because a large percentage of us view one or two or more of those precise people as being accountable in some way, and even though this is largely, and even though even though this is largely unspoken, I think this is the difference though. Deep down, internally, most of them, including the big guy, including Russell, they know that they are responsible for this, and that is why some of these efforts are quite elaborate, really, compared to how when TV shows get cancelled. You said yourself, Matt, things get cancelled all the time.
Yeah.
Most of them, there could be a campaign from the fans or whatever, and you might get a statement from somebody connected with the production. Oh, well, it was fun while it lasted. Oh, we tried to do this, we tried to do that, but maybe next time. That kind of thing. This sort of flurry, this business and flapping of wings. This is different, and I think it's down to it being a cultural institution up to a point, and nobody wanting to be the person who's holding the keys when the thing hits the wall. But the reason why they're being so insistent is because they know they are collectively responsible.
And
it'll never be admitted, Charlotte. It'll never be admitted.
Oh no, but it's like what I found interesting, in that Deadline article that dropped a couple of days after the announcement, because I read through it. There was one line which I was like, this is the industry saying this, because Deadline is basically the industry when it
their
talks.
peers.
The line said something to the effect of, it's going to take a surgery to fix this. The word surgery was used basically in a description of why a Christmas special wasn't good enough.
Unless they give it time, and unless we observe, they observe a little bit of patience and put their own ego aside for a change. And just keep quiet, because more words from them is kind of. I think the Pete can get away with it, because on the surface, to the naked eye, he's loosely connected, but everybody else should largely shut their faces for the time being. Apart from people in the live chat, of course, like Funky. Good. We've got on the rumor. From It's Far From Being All Over. We've got loads of comments like that. Thank you, Funky, for joining us. Good afternoon, says Randy Howell, in the live chat. Bill's in too. Bill says cancelled, now uncancelled. This is beginning to sound like bricks and minifigs. Bill, no idea what you're talking about.
That's Lego. That's Lego. There's
it's a shop.
There's a big it's a big controversy at the moment.
Is it one of those things that people assume that we know about? No, I have no idea what you're talking about, Bill. This has been coming since season 11, says Jack. And Mystic Puma says, with all the DEI restrictions that the BBC would place on any production company, it's just a poison chalice. The DEI tick boxes injected by Russell T Davies killed the stories he wrote. Sadly, we cannot level the DEI thing at Russell. It's industry-wide, and within the BBC, it is part of their charter. It's part of their charter since 2015. This frustrated Stephen Moffat. He's spoken about it when he was on the show. So whilst Russell T Davies did lean into that and believes in it, this is not about Russell. That particular issue isn't about Russell. He didn't minimize it. I think that Stephen tried to. I think Stephen tried to preserve the audience experience. But Russell believed differently and tries to use it as fuel.
He tried to.
We need to look at some more comments. We've got whoever you are, wherever you are. Hi to the panel on the chat from Jess Corbin. Farsight says revenge is sweet. Matt, I mean, I don't know if people feel that this is revenge of any kind. I certainly, when I read the statement and realised that it had gone away, my first feeling was, thank God I won't have to listen to Russell T Davies anymore.
It was a relief.
And I must admit, for a second, I thought, I hope he's feeling this the way that we are. I hope it's cutting deep into his psyche, into his heart, when he realizes what he's been complicit in. Funky also says the 90s was a fun time and not dark. And Lee Smith says, "Hi Lee."
It was
says,
fun.
Imagine being a kid Doctor Who fan and looking forward. See, to me, this is the most important thing. Imagine being a kid Doctor Who fan looking forward to a Christmas special. It's very shitty to lie about it. And we can say all we like. It's not as popular as it used to be. There aren't any kids that are looking forward to it. Yeah, we know that it's waned in popularity, but the principle remains the same. If they were doing their job correctly, then it would have regenerated the audience, and there will be children who did like it and were looking forward to it, and families. And whether it's 5 million of them or 500 or just 5, I feel bad for those families. I think a lot of us do. If we remember how it made us feel, if we were raising children during the RTD era, or the Matt Smith era in particular, when it was very, very successful. It's sad to lose that. It's also sad to lose David Milling, who couldn't make this show. He's off. He's had surgery on his nashes, so he's laid up at the moment. He says, "Evening all. Thanks for nursing me through this evening. Hopefully we'll be back soon. Get well soon, David." Astounding. The issues and pretending nothing is wrong is not helping, says Durkee McDurkface, in light of what various people are saying. And Kieran Coley says that Doctor Who needs time off the air and there shouldn't be any rush in returning the show to our screens. This is the first time we've seen you, Matt, since the announcement broke. I mean, is that how you felt? It's like, it's a blessed relief.
Oh, it was an absolute relief for me. I just felt the bastard's gone. You know, the one that has just pounded this into the ground and it just kept going. I do really feel for the young kids and that won't have a hero now. So, you know, but I also, the fact that they've left it on such a sour note of a cliffhanger that it's literally left them hanging. So there's no resolve. There's nothing, and I think that may play into their not OCD, more of a, I don't know what you call it, Dan, but you know, when people get really, really like it, just like what's happening? What's happening? You know, I think that may actually, if they don't have any resolution, and it continue. If it does come back, it's not gonna continue.
It's not even. Well, it's not. When I think of how previous cult shows have ended, there's been loads of shows that have been left hanging in the air. Either deliberately or accidentally. Shows like V, the miniseries. I'm thinking of Angel. When we last saw the cast of Angel, they were in an alleyway to face a horde of demons. And it's the same with Blake 7, where when Blake 7 closes out, we're left with a solitary figure, a pile of either dead or unconscious bodies and gunfire. But in the case of most of those shows, there's something there. If you've been watching the show and you know the characters, you've lived in that universe for a season or 2 or 3 or more, you can work out in your head over a period of time probably where the story might go. But with the way that Doctor Who ended with the reality war, it was so nonsensical, it was so left of field, and it was so embarrassing that it is like, it's as if she may as well have put both thumbs in her ears and blown a tongue out like that, and then cut to the credits. It was so bizarre. There's no way you can take that, and you could say, "Oh, well, Big Finish could pick it up and do." Could they? Would they? There's nothing to work with. There's nothing to work with in the same. I think they probably would as well. But what I'm saying, you see what I'm saying? There's a big, there's a big difference. There's a big difference between leaving people hanging and filling in some blanks and I wonder if this, I wonder if that, if so and so survived or this happened. But with that, it was as thin as it appeared to be, as cheap as it was, and that's why nobody could really give a shit what happened next. I've never really given it any serious thought.
I had to try and find a positive out of this entire era that has now gone before us, and it was the fact that I felt like Mel had been redeemed. So that's the positive I'm going to take from this era, in that I appreciate Mel more than I have ever done in the past. That's for sure. Because she was taken more seriously, I guess.
I agree.
She was the only one that was serious in the show, to be honest. She was the only one to tell him to shut up and stop crying.
That's the subject. That's the subject we'll be returning to on Type 40 in the future. Definitely, we won't be sort of leaving it here with this era. Making some lees. Bloody hell! Couldn't you just put Phil or something? Ted. Ted says the way UK TV treated Red Dwarf was the same. I don't know if it was, but it's in a similar limbo. Or it was. Yeah. I mean, Red Dwarf is finished.
I stopped watching Red Dwarf.
I think I know what you're saying. Russell D isn't the problem; it's the environment that we live in, says Matthew Pounder, and we know that Russell is far from Matthew's favourite person. No, it's sadly Russell is a symptom of a far greater sickness, and they're pushing the Chibnall and Gatwa stuff now. Says the PVS, who's they? And
Chibnall.
We've got I don't know, Bill. I don't know what you're talking about, so I'm not going to refer to that. Okay, if you've drop comments that we understand, I'm sorry. And PD Rich says, "Make your mind up, BBC. This is turning into the Dead Parrot sketch, Charlotte. But Doctor Who will continue. It will continue as Big Finish Adventures, Blu-ray releases, the classic series. The TV series won't be back for a while, though." Says K's77 CPT. I'm going to call you. I'm going to just call you Matt. I'm going to call you Ted. I'm going to call you Phil. I'm going to start giving people with silly names their own new names in the chat.
My guess is, and I'm not just being flippant, I actually would be willing to make somebody a bet on this, is that just as they resolved the season 21 Blu-ray trailer with Peter Davison and Tegan and Turlough, they resolved that story in the comics. That's how they'll resolve this. They'll do like a multi-part story, and maybe, I mean, if they get enough, call for it, I would think that's the only way they could resolve it visually, is just do it in the comics.
I don't think anybody will. I don't think anybody cares.
No one wants to read comics anymore, Gary.
I think there'd be a morbid fascination with seeing.
How dare you?
I think there's a morbid fascination with seeing how anybody who would attempt to continue that or to close that circle, where they would start and how it would finish. But I think that a morbid fascination, an actual hunger for something, an interest, I think those are completely different things. I could be totally wrong, though. If you feel differently, let us know in the comments, by all means, because the thing about the Doctor Who fandom is that there is no shortage of alternative, completely different opinions.
This is Lord President Rassilon. Due to the interference of that idiot renegade, the Doctor, the universe is collapsing. Unfortunately, the Time Lords have no answer for this, and I am forced to call upon the services of Type 40 podcast.
Apparently, folks, it is the World Cup right now. The World Cup, and Scotland, believe it or not, have played their first ever World Cup match in over 3 decades. The Doctor Who community, the Doctor Who family, more to the point, is blessed with more than its fair share of Scots, not least of all Karen Gillan herself. She was out supporting Scotland there at the match itself. I don't know if that's the actual Scottish kit or if she's dressed as a referee. If you remember, I don't do sport, Charlotte, so I'm somewhat alien to all of this. But Karen is really throwing herself into this whole experience. Scotland won as well, so she'll be very, very. Check it out.
The man who wants
Let's go, Scotland! To be fair, it's been lovely to see the Scottish people embrace this, because it's been so long for them. So it's sort of just been happy and proud and just been having something of your country that you can go, yes, we've done it, which I think's brilliant when you can do that. So of course Karen's there because she's always there to sort of show her pride in being Scottish. She's always done this, so it is lovely.
I've seen her in a uniform before, but never in a kit. And she really leant into this, embraced her identity to support the troops, to support the players. I should say, I think they probably appreciated the efforts of the MCU, Jumanji, and Doctor Who star here. She's that's a look, Gary. That's a look. Do you need a moment?
Send me this picture later, Dan.
Yeah, I've never understood why people. Yeah, no, she's just not into. I'm just not into her. I'm sorry. I'm not a prude, but I'm just I don't know why people.
I want to know if on that video that she made, if that guy that she flashed who was over on the, I guess the, by the rail there, who was dancing around, if he looked and actually then stopped and went, wait a minute.
Yeah, who's that?
I think that was Karen Gillan.
It's Amy Pond. I don't know, but she was throwing herself into it. Bless her. And when you have a closer look here, she is in, I think those are probably Gucci shorts of some kind, Charlotte, and maybe even Coco Chanel or various accessories. She's got a very expensive handbag, and heaven knows where those boots are from. But it's a football shirt. It's a football shirt at least. I think this is pretty cool, don't you?
Yeah, I love Karen, and it's not just because she's part of my era that's Matt. I think I love how she always throws herself into stuff in the best way. Like, she's the most enthusiastic person I think I've ever seen whenever she does these little shorts or you see her pop up on social media.
A long time now since she left Doctor Who. I can't quite believe it. 13 years, 14 years, something like that. Obviously, she's been very successful afterwards. But I don't find her
massively
very appealing.
Successful.
Yeah, I don't find her very appealing either, Matt. As I think she's very.
I'd say she's been more explosively successful than Matt, and Matt's done extremely well.
Yeah,
she's a director. She's an actress.
But why I find her so likable is that she's still happy to goof around like that.
Yeah.
And enthuse about the things that she enjoys, whether they're horror films or simply supporting her national side. I think this is wonderful. Well done, Scotland. Best of luck to all the British nations who are competing in the World Cup, but yet particularly Scotland, because I know that this has been something that's been coming for a very, very long time. So all the Scots who are watching out there, congratulations, and I do hope you do well in successive, what do they call them? Matches, is it?
Matches.
Football matches, Charlotte?
I don't know either, Dan. I don't know either.
I was just thinking, depending on how much footage she shot on her phone, the BBC should call her, because if she shot an hour's worth of footage of her in the car singing, they should throw that up as the Christmas special. I'd watch that.
This is soccer that we're talking about, isn't it?
Yeah,
soccer.
it's soccer,
right.
Matt. For you.
See, the only film that I ever watched that's a sports film was Bend It Like Beckham. So that's the only way I know about soccer. So
Keira Knightley in the shorts. See, so if Amy doesn't do it for him, but Keira Knightley clearly does.
She was way too young.
That's enough of the sport and enough of the pretty pictures. We're going to reconnect with Russell T Davies in a couple of moments. Lots more from across the Whoniverse in the wake of that big update on the future of Doctor Who. Lots more commentary, opinions, and clues from various people and places. The best place, of course, to get a clue on what could be coming next is always at Type 40 and Type 40 Live. Thank you to Starhoovian, who acknowledged that over on X. Starhoovian picked up our report from a few weeks ago and really did put it on blast. So, yeah, thank you. And Type 40, spot on, yet again, acknowledged there from Starhoovian. We need more. We need more of this.
Yes.
Thank you. And we salute you back, Starhoovian. You can get all of it in full. This is what kickstarted all of this. Our report from about 4 or 5 weeks ago now, Type 40 Live Crisis, where we dropped the big bombshell about how the Christmas special for 2026 was absolutely collapsing to the place that where we are now. Not just that, there's lots more content in the playlists as well. So more news reports, rolling news coverage in our regular magazine show. and our specials about various stories and seasons and actors and producers, all there in the Type 40 playlist for you to enjoy over and over again, as well as the Type 40 podcast across all major podcatchers and our home feed, type40.podbean.com. But this is Type 40 Live, Rumble, X, YouTube, and Facebook. As always, there's more to talk about. There's been more said, and lots more to speculate on as well. Is there more blame to dish out, Charlotte? I think that's the question. I think we are a vengeful fandom at the moment, but I think we can excuse ourselves that up to a point.
Well, we're a fandom that's been lied to, that's been gaslit, and we're a fandom which we are very much in that mode of it didn't have to get this way. It didn't have to get to this point. It could have been avoided.
No, I think we're tired.
It's like when they said, "Oh yes, we lied." Ha 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 ha. Gotcha.
Yeah.
You know, and that was the knife. It wasn't so much that they lied. It was the fact that they treated it like it was a joke, that they'd lied to everybody. And they've done it before. Russell just that's his second nature, you know. But still, the fact is that, you know, something this catastrophic to a lot of people who weren't expecting it. They were expecting what they were promised. You know, it's a kick in the teeth, and they are rightly so angry about it. I don't blame them for being angry, but what do they expect from this man?
Angry and very, very tired, Matt. I think we all need a bit of a rest and recuperation, but not this week. I think there's going to be far more to hear and to see. More coming up, more quotes in a couple of minutes, so stay exactly where you are, and we'll let you know. We're going to catch up with, I'm afraid he is coming up, everybody, so you may need to brace yourselves.
Hello, this is Sue Molden. On behalf of the team, I'd like to say how overwhelmed and extremely grateful we are to everyone who has donated so far. The response has been magnificent, and we are especially grateful to those who have pledged regular donations. A big thank you from all of us at Film is Fabulous.
To be continued, some insist, whilst others are going with the time-honoured RIP Doctor Who. And wherever you feel, however you feel, and wherever you sit with all of that, no judgment ever here. The various players, the various partners have left the table. This is starting to seem like we would have a time to battle Disney both out. Even the studios for the time being, leaving the BBC stood alone. The man who represented all of it for such a long period of time, who couldn't stop with the hyperbole and with the false promises, was Russell T Davies, at one time the king of Doctor Who fandom, the showrunner who, it wasn't the case that he could do no wrong, but I think that was deeply respected for what he'd achieved before, now stands rather exposed and as a colossal failure. Russell T Davies has been pilloried personally in the media and the Doctor Who community at large in the wake of that fresh update from the BBC last week, and deservedly so. There's been reports that he's been contacted privately through direct messages and has been fielding some abuse in that form, which we absolutely disavow. But it is okay to be angry. It is okay to voice your disappointment, your distaste at the man's deeds, words, and ideologies. That's okay, particularly if somebody has their own private platform, but just hold back from contacting them personally would be my advice. The media, I think they're responding in a way that I've never seen as regards Russell before. This man is very powerful and respected, but the Mirror acknowledged Russell T Davies and the BBC were hit by an angry backlash over their Doctor Who lies, whilst the genre press, such as Total Film and Empire, they were, through various editorial pieces there, along with several other big outlets, really getting into this. The real questions about what went wrong, when, and what could be a remedy for this IP as it lays sick and, for all intents and purposes, about to actually expire. Charlotte, you mentioned the Deadline article a few moments ago. The Deadline piece, as always, with everything that Deadline put together, was hardly exhaustive. They're always very slim, but methodical reads and perfectly targeted. They went with Doctor Who set to be off air for years amid creative regeneration that's failing to spark enthusiasm among producers when they took the notion of taking over the show to other people within the industry. That was fascinating, but none of this changes the prospect of the series, the fortunes of the series right now, or alters where we are as simple spectators or people who've been paying into it through the license fee and supporting, believing in Russell T Davies. He's how many seasons? So 2 seasons recently, the 4 seasons before, and several specials. He's cast 4 Doctors now, even if 2 of them were played by the same bloke. Russell's legacy with the show is undeniable. I do feel that it's all been harmed, though, and a lot of his decisions. I think the ones that there are certain decisions that he's made and certain mistakes that he's made which do seem to have been repeating themselves. From what we're hearing already, his relationship with Ncuti Gatwa remains frosty, and of course his relationship with Christopher Eccleston may be there's some professional respect there, but personally it's evidently still in tatters there, Gary. And you do have to wonder, maybe it's the common denominator that's responsible for all this bad feeling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, you're exactly right. There's no coincidence that anybody just can look at the way this RTD2 era played out and his petulant, childish responses afterwards, and you can totally connect that with somebody who would act in a way that would cause such a breach in his relationship with Christopher Eccleston. You know, would a guy who reacts like this have any problem with, you know, blackballing an actor who you didn't like? No, it would totally. I mean, you know, the actions totally match up. I think one of the a while ago somebody asked the question, well, why is this, you know, blowing up the way that it is now? I think especially with this era, I think Russell Davies, intentionally or not, that he was so intertwined with the show, with this era, they might as well have called the last couple of years Russell T Davies Doctor Who, because he took pains to make him as much of the star of the show, with all of his pronouncements and all of the media and everything, that you know, in a way that never happened, even with John Nathan Turner in the original show. I hadn't looked at it that way. I hadn't looked at it that way before, but I think the more I reflect on it, the more I think you're right. I think tonally it felt different, and I think Russell's voice was at a different pitch and far more prescriptive than he'd been in his original era. He's been speaking, obviously, he's been out promoting his latest non-Doctor Who drama for a few weeks now. I think it's actually finished, but that doesn't seem to be stopping him from talking about it. So he's been speaking on the Gadio platform. This was a few days ago. Right. This was a few days ago now. So he was speaking on Gadio to their host Dave Cooper, largely to promote Tiptoe. But obviously, this interview was conducted, I think, a day, maybe 2 after the announcement, and Dave did raise the subject of Doctor Who's future and Russell's departure from the show. So check it out. This is what Dave got from Russell T Davies on Gadio just a few short days ago.
Years and years it's sustained Tiptoe Doctor Who as well. We're going to get into it all, aren't we?
Thank you. I'm here for you.
Tim F is messaging. Asks if you had a TARDIS and can go back to when you took over Doctor Who for the second time. What would you do differently?
Oh, nothing. I loved what I did.
There you go.
I mean, I'd grab that TARDIS and take it and fly off to Mars.
Yeah.
Frankly, all the places to go, why go back to earlier in your job?
Yeah.
Come on.
Doctor Who, you have officially stepped away from the show. You were the show's showrunner. And I said front runner then. Showrunner.
I like that.
You want to sort of pour a bit of water on all this sort of hoo-ha that's come from it. The show is not cancelled.
No, it's extraordinary to see newspapers who should know better seeing the show has been cancelled. It's the opposite. It's been put out to tender.
Yes.
And I understand that's an industry phrase, and people might not understand what a show being put out to tender means. Equally, at the same time, those people are complaining on devices which have a search engine. Go and look it up. Being put out to tender means, and this will happen to every BBC show, it's happened to Casualty, it's happened to The Weather. The weather was put out to tender. Do you know the weather now is not made by the Met Office on the BBC?
I thought it had gone back.
Oh, has it gone back?
Oh, we're going really into the nitty-gritty of the BBC now.
But what it means is
the tendering process is widespread across the BBC. It's not compulsory that they do this, but they have refreshed targets every few years as regards most of the criteria in their royal charter. It's the same with all of their charters, all their agreements and all their strategies. So all of this is absolutely true. And obviously the tendering sort of process, that's the same. That's very widespread certainly across British broadcasting. I'm not sure how common it would be internationally. And because there aren't that many intellectual properties of the sort of scale of Doctor Who. And when it comes to individual dramas, a lot of them are owned or developed by specific companies. You know, the Death in Paradise cluster of shows, they were developed by Tony Jordan for a particular production company. So things like that don't really count. But as regards those sort of mainstays that were originally created, devised in-house by the BBC, things like Casualty, things like Silent Witness, I think they're allowed to shop them around in a sense, in the same way that they would a game show. Game shows that sometimes straddle different channels. Let's see what else he's got to say.
the program is pitched to be made by an independent company.
Yes.
As opposed to the BBC. Independent companies include BBC Studios, by the way, which is separate to BBC Public Service.
Mm-hmm.
So they're in the running, I imagine. I don't know. I'm not part of
He knows
this process because it's a very legal process. But it's happened to Casualty. Casualty has been sitting there for years as a BBC show. It was put out to tender last year. Now that's going to be made independently by BBC Studios. So the same thing is happening here with Doctor Who. And I think, I'm not in charge of this process, that means many years ahead, no one's going to put out to tender, no one's going to apply for a tender for 1 year. It's not worth it.
Yeah, you've got to lock in.
You've got to lock in just to make it financially worthwhile. So I think this guarantees years of the program. But no, go ahead and call it cancelled if you want.
I thought Russell was guaranteeing us years of the program.
It only guarantees years of the program if someone pays out, Gary.
I'm surprised he's not speaking on the sister station transmitter. To be honest,
I mean, the condescension is just like wafting off of my computer screen.
I've never seen Russell this sweaty. I don't mean that personally. I'm not suggesting he's got a personal hygiene problem. I think he seems uncomfortable. I think he seems nervously. I think he seems nervously anxious.
He's going higher and higher.
But he's in his comfort zone, though, Dan. He's in his comfort zone.
I think he's aware that people are hanging on every word, and you could tell I've never seen him so antsy as he is right now. Let's see what else he's got to say.
You're wrong. You're literally wrong.
Yeah, we're just... All right.
Hang on. Let's listen to that last portion a little because I think
lock in just to make it financially worthwhile. So I think this guarantees years of the program. But no, go ahead and call it cancelled if you want. You're wrong. You're literally wrong.
Okay. Two very quick things. One, I am so not surprised with. Would you go back and change your thing? No, not a thing. What I did was fine. That did not surprise me. I would have dearly loved the interviewer there to just say, but how did we get to this point? and then just sit back and let Russell respond. I would have loved that.
He's not interested in asking any kind of questions. So just to recap, he says it's extraordinary to see newspapers who should know better, because everybody should know better. Russell T Davies knows better, and you do not. It's extraordinary to see newspapers who should know better saying the show has been cancelled. It's the opposite. So these papers, these newspapers, these magazines, these websites, these communities and fan spaces, we know, we're not stupid. Oftentimes, this isn't the only property that we follow. And we look across pop culture, across the TV and movie landscape. It's not just the people who work inside it that understand it, Russell. And we're able to decode the signals and read between the lines. I think there is a distinction between one set of circumstances and another. But the way it's being framed by Russell here is, I think, incredible. Did you say condescending, Gary? I think that's how it's coming across, Matt.
I was going to ask a question, because when he goes on about it being put out to tender, I thought it had already been done that with Bad Wolf, because they're an independent company from BBC. So is there something I'm missing, or what?
It's a similar situation. It's a similar situation, but there was never any... Back in 2020, 2021, when that appeared, when that chain of events began, Bad Wolf came with Russell, and it was Russell that had angled to take the show over, and he took it to Bad Wolf as his preferred production house, because you've seen, like Tiptoe, he's got a preference to either work with Channel 4 or with Bad Wolf. He's got a set of production companies that he works with, that he provides material for. So this started with Russell T Davies. There was no tendering process. There was no competition. It wasn't a competitive series of bids. It was Russell wants to take this show over. It was about to be cancelled at the time, if you remember. Doctor Who was effectively cancelled in 2021. This is something that's getting glossed over now. It wasn't cancelled for long. It was a matter of days. But Russell saved it. He pulled it out of the fire, and he involved Bad Wolf. There was no other prospect at all. Bad Wolf didn't have to pitch, didn't have to tender. It was, okay, we want Russell to take it. So, okay, in that case, these are my people. Now the situation is totally different. Charlotte?
I thought the BBC approached him, but okay.
I find it funny how he is so scared. And that's the vibe I get of the word cancelled.
Yep.
It's like it's kryptonite to Russell right now, isn't it?
Yeah.
But here's the thing, Russell. You can tell us we're all wrong, because that's really what you're doing. It's not just the papers. I think you're having a bit of a dig at. I think you're thinking of other people, if I'm being perfectly honest.
It's all of us.
But here's the thing. Russell, is there currently a production team ready to go? Is there currently a set which is ready? I know the set's at Bad Wolf, but is there currently a set which in the next couple of weeks a film crew is going to go
Any
into?
pre-production? Yeah.
Is there currently auditions going on? Is there scripts? No to all of those things, and probably a lot more people could list. So right now it is cancelled, because nobody has got any right or legal right or any plans to do with Doctor Who. Is it going to remain like that forever? No. So I think he's trying to use, like, oh, technically it's this and technically it's that. But
Semantics.
yes, he's using semantics. That's the word I was trying to think of. But right now, nobody's making Doctor Who. That is as good as cancelled.
Mm-hmm.
It's just he's scared to have that label because, like we've all said, it leads back to him.
Yep.
That's what all of this is about.
The word cancelled has the same. Well, the word cancelled really it's a big pill to swallow in the way that the word axed used to in the 80s, Matt. Do you remember that headline on the Sun? Doctor Who axed. We tend not to use words like axed anymore. I think the Sun and the Mirror sometimes do. We tend to just say cancelled, and cancelled has these extra connotations because of cancelling of famous people being cancelled for their political opinions. Cancelled has kind of a double meaning, or maybe even 3 or 4 meanings now, and it brings all these emotions, and it reeks of not just failure. I think it reeks of rejection, and rejection and failure are different but connected things.
I think with Russell is, and I've found this with those that are on the left, they have a very weak moral compass when it comes to religion and lying and being truthful and that sort of thing. Yeah. Whereas, I find I can communicate better with the right because a lot of them are not so much devout religious, but they know when telling the truth is better because we have some sort of compass where we know that we're going to feel better if we tell the truth. These guys don't want to feel better. They just feel they just want to lie, and I've had enough of it. I really have. I've learned that in the last 5 years anyway.
Russell has, to me, my opinion, his main concern in all of this is how he is perceived. And as Charlotte said, he's desperate not to be perceived as the guy who got the show canceled. Even the BBC will still refer to, as we all have, the series as a cash cow. It's one of the, financially, it's one of the flagships of the BBC. It is a cash cow. And right now, everybody realizes that this guy tanked the cash cow of the BBC, and he's panicked about what the ramifications for him are because of that.
I agree. What about you, Charlotte? I mean, he's a very wealthy man, very successful man. He's a lot of people are giving up for retirement when they're Russell's age. I don't think he's the type, and I think he could probably still get anything commissioned. But failure is failure. It's hard to wear for somebody with a big ego.
Yeah, and it's a failure with lots of important people who are also feeling very hard done by. When you've got Disney walking away from you, here's the other thing that I don't think people have realised. Russell's actions have got Bad Wolf also out of this. Like I said before, they are accountable for this. They were part of this.
They're complicit.
Yes, but if you think about it, they've also lost the Doctor Who contract. They've lost a massive IP, which if
apparently they're free. Apparently, Charlotte, they're free to bid again, but I can't see that happening.
No, why would you go back to the production team that you've just kicked out? Basically, like that would be beyond crazy. Here's the other thing which I find funny with his comparisons. You can't compare something like Casualty to Doctor Who. Casualty doesn't have action figures, doesn't have books, doesn't have comics.
No, it's not an intellectual property.
It's not a massive intellectual property. So if that goes out to tender, it's just another drama for the BBC that will somebody can come in, but Doctor Who is a massive sort of franchise thing. So anybody coming in, there's so much more to consider. That it's not just an easy thing of, oh, I'll offer to make your drama for you. You also are basically saying, I'll make your show, I'll have to do massive advertising campaigns and like the social media aspect of it. I also have to look at, because that's the other thing, I get the impression that the showrunner for Who, especially in the last couple of runs, isn't directly involved with all the outside media, but they have to have some sort of knowledge of what a lot of the other arms are doing so they don't like step over what they want to do. It's this big old machine. I think that's what I'm trying to say here, that you can't then say, oh, it's just like how Casualty goes out for tender. You can't compare. I'm sorry.
What gets me is the fact that the BBC were so complicit in the fact that they lied as well, that they would do a full statement to say...
They haven't acknowledged that at all. All they said is they understand why fans could be disappointed, but other than that, Matt, there's not a word of contrition.
But Dan, if that happened in Australia or another public broadcaster, they would be absolutely trounced on. They cannot lie. They cannot do public statements like that to say, expect this in the future. Oh, we just put that out and pretty much, tough luck. You can't do that. You can't do that. Why does the BBC seem to get away with it? And who signed off on that? They knew that there was going to be nothing. They just put it as a placeholder, for God's sake.
Well, Matt, could it be that in this case, I think all of this is an indictment of the BBC's judgment, and in terms of and it's an indictment of their stewardship of money. In this case, the Disney money, and by extension, the license fee. So it's like, wow, we get all of this money, and we basically cede all of the decision-making power to somebody like Russell or whoever it would have been. And it's like, oh, just let them get on with it, without any kind of real oversight or controls. What does that say about them? I mean, this would be like massive, kind of self-indictment to come along and say, well, yeah, we were wrong. We wasted all this money. We misused it. We shouldn't have done this. How then would people, and I'm not countering you, Matt, when you say this, but I'm just saying that makes them going into the future look really, really bad for anybody who wants to get into bed with the BBC.
Gary, you know from working on the Hollywood Reporter and looking at the entertainment media that the BBC has been trying to be a bigger player on the global stage and be taken seriously as an international producer for over a decade now, probably a decade and a half. Initially, it went quite well, devising the iPlayer, various other innovations, and the intellectual properties that they owned at the time. They were responsible for things like Top Gear being the prime one. But there were other shows. There were other big brands that were on their books, in their portfolio. Now most of them are gone, or they're not marketable anywhere else. So they failed in that respect, time and time again. And then there's respected organs like Deadline who are able to clinically go in and diagnose the problem. They fall short of rounding on individuals. But in that piece that we were talking about earlier on, they say, okay, they say this and you feel that way. They take a step back and they talk to all those producers. And I do wonder, because I suspect that people at Bad Wolf, people at the BBC will have read this, and obviously nobody is named in this. The producers that they speak to aren't named, but this is also going to be ringing in their ears as well. So whatever Russell says, whatever Pete McTighe says and feels, whatever the party line is, this series, this IP, and thus the tender is only going to be worth as much as people are willing to pay for it, to outlay for it, based on their own business models and their outliers with their outcomes for being involved in something like that, their expectations. And this is where I can't help but feel that the entire IP could end up disappearing down somewhat of a sinkhole, which will mean that for all intents, just like Charlotte said, it's out of production. The last thing that was in production was indeed cancelled, and therefore the series remains cancelled. Russell will not acknowledge that, but some of his colleagues are, including Danny Hargreaves. Danny worked on the series extensively for years in the visual effects department. He hasn't got an axe to grind over any of this, but he's quite active on social media. And he said this, Danny SFX, he said, gutted to hear that Doctor Who has been officially cancelled after 196 episodes and 8 Doctors. Heartbroken. I'm incredibly proud to have been part of the journey from day one and to have worked on every single episode. It's impossible not to feel emotional about the end of something that has meant so much to so many people around the world. At the same time, I'll always be grateful. It's been the greatest ride of my life and a true privilege to play even a small part in the history of such an iconic show. Who do you believe Russell T Davies, the proven liar, or professionals, long-standing, respected professionals in their chosen field, simply taking to social media to express a sentiment that we all feel. If they're using the word cancelled, then surely, conclusively, the series right now remains cancelled, Charlotte. Surely.
Well, just look at the difference there. Like, there's no over like flowery language, like we said, with the Russell stuff and the Pete.
It's sincere.
It's sincere. It's honest. It's him saying it was a privilege, and I'm so proud. And he should be. The effects work he did in the modern run was incredible. Like we've all said, so much of the joy of the Confidentials when they originally were making that show was people like Danny who would come and sort of walk you through this set piece or this alien sort of how it had to do this effect.
He's responsible for all of that.
He was such a big part of those Confidentials. So I think when somebody like him speaks, you do really listen. And I think that's probably one of the most honest responses out of like all the ex-people who have worked I saw out. There's probably more which I didn't see, but just from the ones I did see, Danny's rang to me the truest because it didn't feel like a party line. It just felt like a guy saying, oh, it's emotional and I'm sad, and it was incredible. But what I do like is even at the end, he is sort of saying, it's going to come back. And I think that's what Russell and other people are not picking up, that when we are having these discussions, we are all saying, it's the Doctor is this character which people love too much to let him completely go away and never come back. This IP is too important as a British IP for it not to come back at some point.
Yeah, and whilst it isn't worth as much as it was, it is potentially still worth a lot of money. And realistically, the BBC have a lot fewer marketable formats, IPs than they used to. The BBC are not going to be able to afford to have this out of production for too long. But obviously, that will depend on their adjusted model and for how it'll be delivered, depending on obviously who secures the tender. It's depending on numerous factors, but things are going to have to be cut as regards the cloth, and expectations are going to have to be adjusted to a more reasonable and maybe even a less global scale.
Dan, I'm curious. You and Charlotte may be able to answer this. What right now would you say are the BBC's biggest active IPs?
Death in Paradise.
I was going to say the Death in Paradise because they've got the spin-off going quite well for that at the moment.
I'm glad about that because I love the show. Okay.
There are
Line of Duty.
There are other shows that are popular. The thing with Line of Duty is that they only make a series of it now and again, and it's made. And I know they're going to lose Line of Duty. In some respects, I'm amazed they haven't lost Death in Paradise because that's independently produced. But it's been with them for so long, I don't think it's going to happen. Same with Line of Duty. I think there's 6 or 7 into that. But because it's not such a regular show. Because it's not such a regular show, I don't think it's so much of an issue. They've got other shows that they've been producing. Yes, Silent Witness is a prime example. That's just been given another retool. It's being relocated to Birmingham, not far from me, around the corner from a place I used to work at. So that's all being filmed in Birmingham now. And you've got a series called Ludwig, which stars David Mitchell.
Oh, yeah, that's a great show.
But apparently the series is brilliant. And I think there are several series like that were quite successful that may go on to have that extended life. But,
Call the Midwife, is that still going?
It's just ended.
I think
they're doing a movie, aren't they?
Yeah, they're going to extend it with a sequel and things.
Is Gary, they've not got a lot of like ones that everybody will talk about in that sense. Like they haven't got a lot of series now that even if you don't watch the BBC, you know about that show in that sense, or shows which sort of get really good audience figures and lots of positive talk about them, and they sort of just live off sort of good word of mouth. Like they've had a couple like Death Valley that came back this year, like we said, the other Bennett sister, but they're quite the BBC right now is doing really well with cozy sort of dramas.
Yeah,
but a cozy drama has got you can't market it to like this big IP, or it's
Right.
sort of got a very set audience, if that
Yeah,
makes
it's
sense.
like 6 to 8
I look
episodes
at-
a season. Yeah.
I look at shows like Line of Duty in the same way that I would look at something like Luther or Peaky Blinders. And there's various shows like that which they've got the rights to premiere them, but they don't own them.
No.
Netflix has Peaky Blinders and Luther. And so there's these, and they've got arrangements like that with Amazon as well. That was the situation with His Dark Materials, an earlier Bad Wolf production, considerably better than the work on Doctor Who. And they're not alone. So the BBC has this arrangement with producers whereby it's almost like as if they're giving a dog a bone to let the BBC premiere it, and they get it for a little while, and then it goes to whichever streaming platform paid the majority of the money for it in the first place. And they've been doing this for quite a long time, since the series. The first one I really noticed was something called Bodyguard, which starred Keely Hawes and Richard Madden about 5 years ago. Brilliant series.
Well,
it's premiered on the BBC, but then it went straight to Netflix, and it's still on Netflix now.
Okay.
Let's say some of the Line of Duty producers made Bodyguard.
Oh, did they?
Yes. Not all of them, but there was quite a few names that when people look, they're like, oh, that's where they've come from.
One last thing about that Deadline article, which we kind of broke down and analyzed on Saturday's show. And if anybody out there has not seen our stream on Saturday, go watch it. It was a great show. I think one of those producers, or maybe two of them, of the four they questioned, kept coming back to the Disney deal. They're saying, well, the fallout of the Disney thing, which even with all the travails that Disney's been through in terms of its rep and financial kind of ups and downs, is still like a mega force in Hollywood. And as much as Hollywood depends on like reps, like your rep, at the end of the day, it's always money. Money is the oil that greases like all of Hollywood. Reputation is important, but it all ultimately comes down to money. And even those producers in that Deadline article kept saying, well, after the fallout of the Disney deal and the loss of all that money, nobody's going to want to take this on because, the show is too expensive to produce and all of that. So that's still, when you come down to it, the prime factor is the cost.
There are several shows that the BBC has had in production for a really long time, and most of them are separate arrangements from one another. I would imagine that'll sort of be standardized as this tendering process, this tendering model becomes far more standard. And that's certainly, it's not just Russell that's saying that. Sure enough, the paperwork, if you like, that's on the BBC's website spells it out clearly. The legal requirements that they have to observe are getting tighter and tighter. But just as Cyberman says in the live chat, the Doctor Who IP is worth lots of money in the right hands. And as you said, Charlotte, far, far more marketable. I am yet to see character options figures of the cast of Line of Duty. So, and as to whether something like, does Father Brown get a calendar every year or a desk diary?
Oh, I like Father Brown.
Oh, not that sort of calendar. Okay.
Yes. So wherever it could end up, whoever could take it, again, this is something that we will return to over and over again. The beauty of this situation that we're in now is that, thankfully, our days of listening to Russell T Davies are numbered. Thank you to Gadio and Dave Cooper. Gadio is the UK's largest radio station dedicated to the gay community, broadcasting to over 500,000 weekly listeners. So it's quite a setup they've got going on over there. I'm not going to knock anybody for that. I think it's curious that Russell is choosing at the moment, I suppose he is promoting a series, a drama that is of that world, but at the moment he seems to be choosing to only speak to gay or LGBTQ outlets, small outlets.
Funny that, isn't it? Maybe that's like I said, Dan, it's his safe zone. Yeah. That's the thing. He feels safe there.
I think it's a pity. But maybe that's all. Maybe it's the nature of the drama that he's promoting. I don't know. So Russell's words there, it's extraordinary to see newspapers who should know better saying the show has been cancelled. It's the opposite. He insists. Hostile, defensive, somewhat sweaty. Russell T Davies' manner and his exposure in recent weeks are not wearing well on him at all. Sincerely, I wish him good health. I'm pleased that he's away from the show. This is clearly an attempt to stamp down talk and that word, just as you said, Charlotte, cancellation. He's trying to handle his own sense of responsibility for what's happened. And I do believe that misleading people for such a long period of time, even if he felt he was doing it for the best, he would have been aware that he was doing it and probably felt quite dirty doing it as well. He hasn't remotely delivered on his action plan to assure a long-term future himself that he'd assured us about over and over again in a very similar tone to all of this guff that he's saying now. But of course, adopting the same tone now and rolling it all out again, he can do it far, far easier because this time he knows that it's not him that has to deliver on any of this. It'll be the fault, it'll be the problem of someone else.
This is Lord President Russell. Due to the interference of that idiot renegade, the Doctor, the universe is collapsing. Unfortunately, the Time Lords have no answer for this, and I am forced to call upon the services of Type 40 Podcast.
At least we can be sure of some sense and reason from Stephen Moffat. He's one of us. You would think, Stephen Moffat, huge Doctor Who fan first and foremost above everything else. I do like how Stephen Moffat, despite his profile and his accomplishments in the TV industry as both a screenwriter and a producer, he's never ashamed to get his geek on again and to slum it with the rest of us. I do get the impression that Stephen Moffat is still one of us. He's still quite an awkward character. And I think that the years have softened him in a very avuncular way. I just think this guy is great. I know that he and Russell are friendly. I don't think they live in each other's pockets the way that people imagine that they do. I think there are certain sort of fan circles that imagine that Russell and Stephen sort of bunk up together the way that Eric and Ernie used to in the old Morecambe and Wise shows. They probably go for months without speaking. But I do think that it's a very different figure that Stephen, I think the way he relates to fandom and the media is very different, far more diplomatic. But sure enough, he has come out in support in recent days as well. Stephen was responsible for casting 2 Doctors, of course, kind of fan favourites, both of them. Each of these actors remains very dignified in how they talk about the show, and thus the fans too, despite their whatever politics they may have. We're never really too sure about what they think or feel, and long may that continue, because the feeling of mutual respect does seem to be there between both Matt Smith and his audience and the audience with Peter Capaldi too. And I do have to wonder if this doesn't come from Stephen Moffat to some degree. We lead by example, don't we? But obviously Stephen Moffat is more than aware that, okay, he's not in the eye of the storm of this announcement, of this update in the way that Russell T Davies is, but in some senses, there are people out there that think they are the same guy and compare notes on everything, and they are sort of stood shoulder to shoulder. Stephen Moffat did return to write for the show again under Russell T Davies in the Ncuti Gatwa era. The episode Boom from 2024 was partly successful, at least.
Yeah, the anti-Catholic episode, I call it.
But it's been speaking, Matt, on the tendering process and assuring people, again in a similar way to how Russell and Pete McTighe are, that things are going to be fine. But I believe that the tone is rather different, and there is a constituency of people within the Doctor Who fandom who believe that what we actually do need to do is to bring back Stephen Moffat, the state of emergency.
Oh God, no!
And that he, because he has this kind of reassuring manner about him, I think people are kind of seeing that and thinking we can rely on Stephen Moffat, because whilst he doesn't always tell the truth, he's not a big black bullshitter. They're not big black lies that he tells. They were little white fibs, weren't they? Little white lies. And so people now feel he's quite a friendly character. I don't think Stephen Moffat should come back to run the show. Matt, I don't think that Stephen has any kind of inclination to do that at all. But he does remain. I think he remains invested in the show. I think he feels, funnily enough, I think he feels more a duty of care to the fandom than any of the people who've been involved over the last 8 years.
There's a difference between lying and then sort of lying when you've got an NDA.
Yeah.
Right? Now, Russell didn't have an NDA, but he still lied. So what gets me is the fact that why is it okay for him to, to lie when he's not under an NDA, and yet, at least Moffat came out and said, because remember when he was they asked him point blank, are you writing for an episode? Oh, no, I'm done now and all this. And then literally that night they announced that he was doing this episode, certain episode, boom. And then he came out literally and said, oh, I'm sorry, I lied. But we understand that because it's an NDA and, he's not allowed to disclose that. But Russell, there's no reason for it. So I understand. At least he plays a little bit more to the rules. I just, yeah.
I would like to think, I hope, and I suspect that Stephen Moffat's allegiance to the show runs much deeper than his professional allegiance to Russell T Davies. So I think there have been occasions where you can kind of read between the lines of his comment, and you can kind of see what he really kind of thinks but can't say. You see that from time to time with Stephen Moffat. I think that Stephen Moffat was never not near to the degree of Russell T Davies. Stephen Moffat was never overly concerned with putting himself as the front man in all the publicity. Like, it wasn't all about him. It was always about the show, what he was bringing to the show. He never, I don't think, considered himself.
If you look at the pictures, Gary, he often stands behind his actors rather than with his arms round them, sort of right at the front, taking a bow.
With a big smile, going, "Hey, look what I've done."
Russell would always kind of elbow people out of the way to make sure that, and grab the mic to make sure that he was the one to promote. You're right. Stephen was much more humble about that.
Yeah, and I think he has a bit more morals than other writers. That's for sure. In that, I think he feels like, he did something. If he does lie, he just feels bad that he's lied to fans, But I don't think that Russell's moral compass has that. I don't think he has a moral compass. Let's just say it that way. I don't think he feels bad that he lied to it, because it's like, it's okay. It's okay. I lied to you, but it's all okay. It's not.
Well, Stephen Moffat has been speaking in the last couple of days. He was a guest at the Utopia convention in Milton Keynes, a 3-day event. It's been established for a few years now, so I think he's been there before, come to think of it. And he took to the stage, as is often the case, to take questions from the audience. And again, even though it's not his responsibility, he did take it upon himself to address fans' concerns about the state of the show, about the potential tendering process, and of course the notion that Doctor Who could be away for a really long time. So here's what Stephen had to say at Utopia a few days ago. In your own time, Stephen.
If it plays. Oh, we've had fun with technology tonight, folks, haven't we?
Yeah.
Being cancelled. Yes, Christmas has been cancelled. Well, to be clear, not all of Christmas. The day will still take place, even though Doctor Who is not on it. Quite honestly, I'm not altogether sure why they bother doing that. But yes, Christmas, and that's a black mark. I don't like the fact there's not going to be a Christmas special. There should always be a Christmas special. But there's not going to be that. But the show will return, very, very definitely. This is not like those of us who are old. Remember, there was 16 years of, well, we'll maybe tell you something next week. It's not that situation, right? So out to tender is not out to grass. Out to tender means actively seeking a future for Doctor Who. It may take a little bit longer. Oh, so what? How much Doctor Who do you need? I mean, on your iPhones right now is every episode ever made except for the ones we accidentally lost, right? So watch those for a while. It's great, right?
Okay.
Flippant.
Yeah.
And
why did he throw shade at Christmas? Literally say that there shouldn't be a Christmas day. No, he literally said there shouldn't be a Christmas day. I don't know why they have a Christmas day. I'm sick of this bullshit.
Matt,
I really am.
With respect, I think you're taking it a little too literally, a little too seriously. I think he was. I think he was attempting to look to fellow feeling with the audience.
Oh, I'm not laughing.
Who for many of us, Doctor Who has been the highlight of our Christmas Day, and in some cases, the event of a Doctor Who Christmas special does sometimes eclipse the holiday for a great deal of people. It's synonymous with the Christmas period. So, culturally in Britain, the significance of it can't be underestimated. So, really, it's Moffat's self-deprecating sense of humour, and his kind of "I'm one of you, I'm just as obsessed with this show as you are" kind of mentality. So, I think we can sometimes take our black pearls a little too much to heart with this.
Well, all I'll say is say it about Ramadans, Moffat.
Well, but here's the thing. Let's
just recap for a moment. He said, I don't like the fact that there's not going to be a Christmas special. There should always be a Christmas special. There's not going to be that, but the show will return very, very definitely. There's that word again, Gary. Definitely. There's a sure, how can I put this? There's a very sure tone. Everybody who's speaking on these stages in the last few days directly to us in this way, because he knew this was being recorded, he probably knew this would make its way to social media. There's no room for maneuver here. They are absolutely categorically of the belief that the show is absolutely going to come back and that we're not going to be waiting year on year on year. I don't see how they can know that unless there's something that simply hasn't been publicized yet.
Well, or that could be true, or you could just say that one other possible explanation is that's just he's very sure of his own personal opinion that it will come back. So you could say, I don't know which is the truth. You could say, well, he's saying that with insider knowledge he can't reveal, or he's just being very forthright and definitely about his own personal opinion that it will definitely, come back. Either could be true. I don't want to undercut.
No, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. He did also, I think he looks to the same points that Russell did, but he's nowhere near as defensive, as patronizing, or as bitter in his tone. I mean, fair enough, he hasn't been in the hot seat this whole time, so perhaps that's easy for him not to be. So looking to the tender process, rather than telling people to just go and Google it, you lazy bastards, he says, so out to tender is not out to grass. Out to tender means actively seeking a future for Doctor Who.
And that's a statement of fact. I mean, that is literally, as we've discussed, as you've outlined, Dan, that's what the term means. I don't want to undercut what I was just saying about sometimes with Stephen Moffat, he's liable to kind of like he's able to couch his true feelings in amongst the avuncularity and the facetiousness and stuff. The fact that he would say, make no doubt, this is a black mark, to me is a prime example of that. He could have described all of that. To me was his personal punch out to the B. He didn't have to call it a black mark. A black mark on who? Well, obviously it's a black mark on the BBC and it's a black mark on Russell T Davies. But that to me is an example of Stephen Moffat allowing his true feelings to kind of flash out, just in a way that won't get him into trouble.
Charlotte?
See, I sort of, I'm trying to word this with what I'm going to say. I get what he's doing. He's also trying to reassure fans, and he's nowhere near as condescending. I will happily agree to that. But I do think, once again, he's trying to sort of make it all positive. And that's what I'm fed up with right now. I think we need people just to state facts. And like Russ, this is nowhere near as bad as Russell. But I just think, yeah, just maybe don't try and always go, oh, the grass is always greener, the grass is always greener. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah, he's trying to talk negatively while also juggling to make people look like they're not.
Yes, he's juggling here.
Paying attention.
Actually. He knows he's having to play the game of the fans are with him, and like I said, I think he has got a better ear for what the fans want and feel than Russell. But then he's also, I think, trying to do a bit of the PR game. I'm sorry. I think there's some PR going on here with him.
I wish, Charlotte, that he would have said something like, you know, I understand what you are all feeling. Believe me, I understand. Even if something like that would, you know what I mean? I mean, it's like,
maybe that would have made me be a little bit more positive. And I'm going to be honest, and we'll probably get to this later. I think he does show quite a lot of almost anger and frustration, which I don't think he should be showing later in this clip.
Well, Stephen stayed in the job for longer than he intended to. He came back and did a full series that he hadn't planned to, and again a further Christmas special. He also came back to the show when one of Russell's Christmas special scripts fell through due to the unavailability of a cast member. So clearly, Stephen does feel a sense of responsibility to do what he can to keep the show on the screen, even when it's not his show to run. And his connection to Christmas in particular is, I think, more than Russell's. He's responsible for so many Christmas specials, most of which people love. I mean, these four that starred Matt Smith for a start, probably the pinnacle of the Christmas special, certainly culturally in Britain. That continued with Peter Capaldi, which probably weren't quite so successful, but he hung in there and continued to make them. And then sadly, that final parting shot, Joy to the World, which has to be one of the worst episodes of Doctor Who ever made, never mind the worst Christmas special. But I think the things that worked undoubtedly worked. And he, I think by extension, Stephen Moffat is sort of associated with Christmas as well. I think I think the sense of responsibility that he felt then, he still feels to some degree now. And I like that. I respond to that. Though I don't necessarily believe him when he claims, for example, in that quote, that he has literally no idea what's going on, because Stephen Moffat is no small player in the British TV industry himself.
No, and he's connected with Russell and a lot of those people who were working on the show.
It's amazing to see these pictures all together, because I mean, you have, you know, the first Christmas special, which is maybe the best ever, and then kind of a weaker one, and then a very, very strong one with Jenna's debut, and you know, a really great you know, final one for Matt, with probably, you know, the best regeneration scene in the history of the show, in my opinion. And even with Capaldi, you have a mix of very strong. His first one is fantastic. The second one, I think, is weaker only. I think that his second Christmas special wouldn't, you know, if it had come at the end of a full year of episodes, but I think the fact that it was the only episode that year, I think kind of is a mark against it. People hold it weaker. The Husbands of River Song, people extol, is really great. His last one was just kind of unfortunate for a number of reasons, but that's not a bad average for the 8 specials there.
Just pity about Joy to the World, isn't it? Pity about Joy to the World. I think Stephen survived. I think Stephen did survive that for the most part. But in some ways, it's a pity if that's going to stand as his final Doctor Who work too. But that may well be the case. I think that Stephen Moffat is the closest that Doctor Who itself has to a Father Christmas figure. And whilst again, I think you're right. I think there is, the more I think about it, Charlotte, there is an element of the publicity and PR game going on here too. Yeah. It just doesn't stick in the throat anywhere near so much. And I think when Stephen Moffat asks us to be calm and insists that he feels it as much as we do, that may or may not be true. But the fact that he's trying to sit with us, trying to make us feel better, I think that's always going to play better with me. Maybe I'm just a big old softy when it comes to these types.
I think with Moffat, what's always going to work with him is whenever he talks about the show, I think he fundamentally understands there's mainstays, there's traditional elements, there's things you cannot change. It's like, I can't remember when it was now, because I'm rubbish at dates for things, but you had that interview when like he was stood in the current TARDIS set with Russell, and Russell sort of really offhandedly was like, oh, but you can change the console, you can do this, you can do that. And you can just see Moffat's face was just like...
He just glazes over.
No. And and that was a fan. Yeah. Like, that's what I think we will always respond to with Stephen. He gets that aspect so well. Yeah. Like, he could have gone, yeah, of course, Russell. Like, he could have... But no, he could see he sort of just stood there in almost shock. Yeah. That Russell was just flippantly
What did you do? In fact, doesn't he say, you've redecorated, I don't like it? We've got comments in the live chat from the likes of Funky, who says he feels that Moffat is guilty by association with Russell T Davies and Chibnall.
Yeah.
Matthew Pounder really doesn't like the Witch and the Wardrobe episode. I loved his character assassination of William Hartnell. This is something that gets brought up quite a lot.
Horrible.
Hopefully, in a couple of months' time, says, I am your servant watching on YouTube. They'll move on, and we don't have to endure them any longer. Rob. Hi, Rob. Rob says, Smith, tarnished tenant.
Oh, I think you said like Smith is better. Is that like a greater than?
Yeah.
Smith is better than a tarnished tenant.
Smith is better than a tarnished tenant.
Can we please drop comments in English? Come on. I'm not
Dan doesn't do math. Dan doesn't do math, everybody. Say it in English.
Speaking in code now. Come on.
Speaking emoji.
Funky says, I've never watched Joy to the World and never plan to. Sadly, you're not missing much. It's bloody awful. And
I skipped that one, thank goodness.
It really is excruciatingly bad. If it comes back too soon, says Kieran Coley, it's just going to fail again, and we'll be back to square one. A disappointment and a waste of time, in all honesty. David Harding has just joined us as coming quite late in the game. Paddy says, do you like your bullshit with arrogance or smarm? So I think that what Paddy is saying is that Stephen Moffat and Russell T Davies are two sort of sides of the same sort of coin, and I think they exist in the same world. I think they're similar. Animals to some degree, but I believe that what's in their heart is slightly different. I don't think Stephen Moffat is ideologically captured at all. I don't think he's as unhappy as Russell T Davies is, or as angry. I think that there are things that likely mean a lot. Again, I've never met Stephen Moffat, but the impression I get is that he's somebody who probably is quite principled and could speak on a number of issues at great length, and it would be able to see multiple sides to different scenarios and ideologies, but probably does have beliefs that he believes that he subscribes to very strongly. But the fact that we don't know exactly what they are, to me, that speaks volumes about the kind of person that he is, the kind of showrunner that he was, and now the kind of community member, family member, or community leader that he remains, because he will always be. I think it's like prime ministers. Once somebody's been a prime minister or a president, they're always referred to as Mr. President, and prime ministers always have security. There's always a sense of prestige around that, and I think that Stephen knows that he'll always be sort of slightly above us. And but I appreciate his efforts to still be humble about it, and to go to the screenings and to enthuse about the things that we do. So yeah, I don't want to overdo it. He's a human being like everybody else.
I'd say he's one of the most imaginative writers that have been on Doctor Who. Current Doctor Who.
The creative side is one side to it, but I'm more talking about people's values now, because just as you said, Matt, what we're seeing at the moment is whether people have a moral compass or not, a duty of responsibility, and a feeling of, and a fellow feeling that they are one of us, rather than that we are that terrible bunch of people over there. And I think that Stephen Moffat so far, and I understand, I recognise that Pete McTighe is trying to do that too, but I get the impression that Pete McTighe is also quite ideologically invested. So. And I get the impression he discriminates based on the material that he's submitted to the show. I thought that as much as I appreciated aspects of his last episode, it had a sort of creeping menace feel at the start. Ultimately, he turned it into a way to have a go at independent. Well, he turned it into a way to have a go at independent content creators and independent journalists. To me, that gives him away as an elitist. And I've never felt that Stephen Moffat is an elitist, even if he is. He's done everything that he could to sort of disguise that, or to play it down, to not let us detect it.
I think another major thing with Moffat, because I do need to go in a couple of minutes, is he's willing to laugh at himself. I think that when you've got a person who is willing to sort of, years after the fact, sort of have jokes about what they did when they were in the show, or some of their known sort of writing traits, which are the fandom we have brought up, like Moffat can never kill anybody off, everybody survives, everybody lives. That sort of became a bit of a thing that haunted him afterwards, because the amount of characters he just couldn't let stay dead. And I remember when it was the lockdowns, he wrote like a little thing, and every line was a little bit of an in-joke about some of the stuff he did, and then some of the general sort of new whoisms. And I think that says a lot about a person, that when they can be part of that, and when they're willing to sort of not be that precious about themselves. Like you said, he's very now, whenever he does sort of go on Twitter, now and again he will appear, or he does these appearances, he's very self-deprecating to him. He will joke about being a grumpy Scotsman. He will joke about so many things, whereas the problem is with Russell, and we saw it prime in that interview you showed today, he can't admit anything that's slightly wrong. He cannot, even in a jokey manner where he doesn't have to sort of be serious about it. He could joke. Wouldn't it be sort of weird if in that interview, when the guy said, "Oh, what would you do?" He sort of went, "Oh, I wouldn't change anything. Maybe I wouldn't let him cry." But imagine if Russell would have done the whole, "Oh, I wouldn't have changed anything, but maybe not the crying so much," and then left it.
Yeah.
That would have shown he can admit something, and I think that's the
in 20 years. Here. I know you're right. I think in 20 years, Matt, since Russell's original era, I've never heard him say, "Oh, you know what? Gridlock was a bit shit, wasn't it?" Or in the way that Stephen Moffat has said, "Oh, right, The Beast Below was a bit crap." I've never heard Russell say that about his own material. Not that I feel, well, I like both of them, but that's not the point. What I'm saying is that the men in question, I've never heard Russell look at his own material and not say anything but glowing things. I mean, maybe he feels that he shouldn't do that because of all the other people who worked on them. I don't know. I've never spoken to. Well, I have spoken to him, but not for years and years and years. I don't know how he would feel about that. So maybe I shouldn't read too much into it. But I think that from our position, listening and watching all of this stuff, that we have to look at the parallels and the differences where we see them, and that's the only way that we can really judge about the people who are responsible for our favourite show.
Another thing that I have found with that left side of politics is that when they turn around, and this is, I'm getting to what he actually said, in that he wouldn't change anything. If you remember, only about 2 years ago, during an American election, the incumbent politician that was going up for what was her name? Kamala Harris, Gary?
Yes.
She turned around and they asked her the exact same question. What would you change? Oh, I wouldn't change anything. And that, they believe,
well, but she's
was
an
the
idiot.
turning point. Yeah, but Gary, that was the turning point for an election for those, wasn't it? Because they were like, if you're not willing to admit that, I think we could have done this better. I think we could have done this better. But it just shows a massive hubris for someone to actually have the backbone to say, oh, no, I've got no regrets.
Well, but that's also
whatsoever.
really quickly, I know Charlotte has to go, but really quickly, that's almost a failing of the interviewer. And I know that that's not like a hard news driving show. I get that on the Gadio show. But the natural follow-up to Russell saying, I wouldn't change his thing. The natural follow-up is for the interviewer to say, okay, that being the case, how did we get to this point then? That's the natural follow-up.
They're not willing to reflect, are they?
Yeah, I get that it would have been, but you can see with the interviews now, the way they're done, the ones which, I'm going to be honest, that's not the purpose. They're there for the person to come promote their show and then go.
Yeah.
It's a talking point.
Yeah.
They've just got all this sheet with talking points on it.
Yeah. Well, and you can see just off, and I'm not having a go. Like I said, all of these things have different audiences. They have different formats. They have different purposes. I just don't think what Russell was on was that purpose.
Yeah. That's why he'll never come on this show, because he knows we'll ask those kind of questions.
But I do need to go.
Thank you. Thank you, Charlotte.
As always.
We'll speak to you in a few days' time. Heaven knows what will have happened by then.
We'll probably have lots more to talk about. Good night, everybody.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Stephen Moffat was appearing at the Utopia convention in Milton Keynes over the last weekend. Where are we? It's an event that's been running for a few years. And it stands a chance that they'll be back next year as well, whether Stephen Moffat will be there or not. So that's the Utopia
event. That's a good catch, that is. That was a good catch. Very well timed as well, wasn't it?
You mean to book him?
Yeah. I mean, you wouldn't think that really, hey, that's
is
good.
That
at least he's willing to talk about Doctor Who,
Is that a big convention, Dan? The one he was at?
Sorry?
Is that like a big yearly convention, the one he was at?
Yeah, they do it. They do it every year, and that's what I was trying to say. That if you do want to book up, go to their social medias. And while Stephen Moffat probably won't be there a second year running, there could be people who you could be interested in seeing. So the link will be in the video description to keep you posted. Go over to their website and who knows. But thank you, Utopia, for putting that online. It was interesting to see for those of us who obviously couldn't be there. Stephen Moffat. I'm glad I'm not Stephen Moffat. If everybody is looking to him for answers and to be potentially a saviour, I'd love to know how he feels about Joy to the World a couple of years on. I've never really heard him say too much about any of that, and perhaps that's understandable. But let us know what you think about Stephen Moffat, about the prospects for his return. Could this all be a double bluff of some kind? And could Stephen Moffat actually be on the way back after all, and he's playing some sort of 4D chess? No matter what he says, he could have been the mastermind of everything, Gary. And looking at him, I think that maybe his eyes are rather close together. Perhaps I wouldn't put it past him.
I have more faith in him. I mean, I don't know. I mean, obviously, none of us know how many years it's going to be until he comes back. But if he's still around and able, I wouldn't mind seeing him, much like Barry Letts did for season 18 as JNT was coming in. Barry Letts was there, the kind of like advisor, executive producer, quote unquote, like in the back kind of advising. And I know that JNT bristled against that, but still you had an old hand there who was involved with the show at its height and is there for advice, whatever. Moffat arguably was the shepherd of the show at its height of New Who. So if a production company came in, they said, well, we're going to install a Moffat here, call him if you need him type thing, I wouldn't mind that at all.
Maybe. Who knows? We'll find out in time, I dare say. And let us know what you think, as always, in the comments.
Go on then.
You're watching Type 40.
Is it over yet? Is all the fuss, kerfuffle, the bother The piss and wind, is it all over yet? I don't think so. I think we've got far more to come as the days and the weeks and the months roll on. I think it'll be quite a long time before we hear anything more from the BBC, another statement of any kind. So whilst this is gradually disappearing, the sight of Billie Piper playing whoever she was meant to be playing at the end of the reality war, whilst that is disappearing into Doctor Who history, I'm sure there are further embarrassments and indignities to come over the next few months. We'll wait and see. We'll make it through together, everybody. I'm certain we will. We'll do okay between us. Another show, more quotes, more opinions, more clues about where things could go, Gary. I think it's quite an exciting time in some respects, an interesting and intriguing time. And I must admit, I still do feel that having Doctor Who cancelled, and I do see it as having been cancelled, I think that when you go back, even now, and read that initial announcement from the BBC from last Wednesday, that feeling, even though they don't use the word cancelled, everybody reads it, and that's how we took it. The tone is that this has been cancelled, that's the end. It may not be the end permanently. I don't think many people climb up with the end permanently or an intentional end permanently, but nevertheless, the series, I see it as it having been cancelled, and I don't care what Russell T Davies says. I don't care what Pete McTighe says, and with respect, I don't really care what Stephen Moffat says either.
There was, if you look at just the initial chat, which again we kind of parsed and discussed, there is an overall tone of almost kind of like a eulogy, saying, yes, we'll be back, but we're closing the door. The door is fully closed on this chapter. They didn't mention Bad Wolf. They didn't mention Russell T Davies, even the most minimal of thanks. But there was very much of an end of an era, eulogy tone to there. Trying to be, formal and respectful. You're at a funeral, you're at the podium. And then all of a sudden, here comes like the drunk guy elbowing that out and grabbing the mic and yelling and airing all the dirty laundry that she's been storing up for years. That's kind of, overall, I think that was the contrast. But the original statement itself, was very much that of a eulogy.
Oh, hello, says Stephen Braddock. Well, it ended up being a goodbye. It did indeed. Matthew Pounder says, in effect, it was put out to tender 2 years ago. I don't know how we've come to that conclusion. No, it wasn't. It's not even been put out to tender yet. The last material that was filmed for Doctor Who was about a year and a half ago, wasn't it? The remount of the regeneration scene. Darren Zone says, I wonder if Stephen Moffat's company, Hartswood Films, will be tendering. A few years ago, they were interested, but the deal had already been secured with Bad Wolf. Now, I'd be surprised if they would pursue it, but I could be wrong. I don't think Stephen Moffat is even semi-retired, but obviously, if Hartswood were to bid for it, Stephen Moffat would be expected to be actively involved, and I just don't think it's something that he would. In all sincerity, I don't think it's something that he'd be looking to do. So I don't think Hartswood will be in the equation. But hey, nothing's impossible, Darren. Nothing's impossible.
Will we be able to see the tender form when it comes out? No? Okay.
No chance. Farsight says, I'd rather have Ben Aranovich and Jamie Matheson come back. Ben Aranovich, he's happily writing those Rivers of London books, isn't he?
That's
I don't think he'd ever get him back to Doctor Who. Jamie Matheson hasn't been seen or heard of in years that I'm aware of. David Harding says, I know I said something nice about Stephen Moffat earlier, but honestly, I don't want anybody associated with the last show to be part of Doctor Who going forward. David, neither do I. Neither do I. Bill says, didn't we think Russell T Davies would save the show after Chris Chibnall? I did. I'll hold my hands up and say that I thought he would. I mean, I was expecting, I said at the time, was I expecting I would like everything that he did? No, I didn't like everything he did the first time he did it. But I did believe that he would. I didn't believe he'd come back with the anger, the bitterness, the adversarial attitude and disdain for some members of the public, and the ideological mission that he eventually, not least of all for the fact that about 6 months before he decided to come back, he'd spoken very publicly about how woke screenwriters, how he was mentoring certain screenwriters, young screenwriters, and how they were handing him scripts that were just full of ideology and woke, and how he was sending it back to them and telling them that you couldn't write stuff like that. And so I just thought that scenes as he seemed to have identified the problem, that there's no way he would make at least those mistakes. But of course, he ultimately did. He viewed it as a platform the second time out, in the same way that Alex Kurtzman views Star Trek and various other people view different things. And lots of good nights to our Charlotte. She'll be back in a couple of days' time, along with the rest of us. Moffat says he isn't political, but what about the Trump jokes? Attacks against the church. Don't forget the welfare state, says Matthew Pounder. Look, I'm not going to get into all of that stuff. Some of this will have gone over my head. Some of it, Matthew, will have been, I like to say this, some of this will have been how you've read things. It depends on the individual. I don't remember. He did make a joke about Donald Trump. Making jokes about people and about things is okay. I joke about things and people that I like and subjects and beliefs that I actually have. I think that people used to do that because there's good and bad and positive and negative in most people and most things. And I think we've forgotten how to do that. We grouping people as either a for or against, on the left or the right, a goodie or a baddie. That's the way that we have all collectively gone. And and I don't believe that Stephen Moffat is that kind of animal. I don't think it's in his nature, but I definitely think it's in Russell T Davies' nature. And Funky says the interviews Russell T Davies is doing is exactly the problem he has with journalism. What do you mean, Funky? Don't understand that comment. It's good to have opportunity, says Jess Corbyn. It's good to have opportunity to let go of some of the frustration, the fury that lot threw at us. And that's very much what we're here for to some degree. To vent your spleen there in the comments section. Certainly don't contact any of those gentlemen and tell them what you think they've done wrong, or jokes you didn't like, or characters or whatever, and don't inbox them in any way like that.
Save all of your good insults for our chat, because we enjoy reading them.
I'm even surprised that he had an inbox, to be honest. Russell,
Me too. Me too.
But I just realized something encouragingly, because I've been all over looking everywhere for the last week. I have not read any articles or really a lot of comments which have taken the tone, well, it's all for the best because the show was basically, it's too old. It's the concept, is burned out. The show has nothing more to give. Nothing like that. It's all, even the Empire one that you put up before was getting canceled right now is the best thing that could happen to the show. They're still concerned about the welfare of the show. They just want to get rid of all, the toxic elements, or as Matt said, all the murderers out of it. So nobody is taking the tack of the show has nothing more to give us. It's time. It had its time, but it's over. Nothing like that, which actually to me, I see as very encouraging, because that means there's still a lot of love and passion for what the show in its pure good form still, always was and still has to offer. So I think we need to hold on to that, because I think that love for the show is still out there.
Classic Who did not need a Christmas special, says 3 Hill have, or Martin, as I'm going to have to call you, because I can't use these names. I'm going to start, if people are going to come in with silly names, I'm going to start giving you names and name badges. That's a deal from now on. Martin says, Classic Who did not need a Christmas special. Again, when I was a kid, I could never understand why Doctor Who was the only show on TV that never had a Christmas special. I felt exactly the same way that Russell did about that. I would have loved Doctor Who Christmas specials during the classic era myself. But obviously it's okay if you feel totally differently, because this is Type 40 and this is what we do here. All opinions are welcome, and there'll be more where all of this came from. This has to be where we close the door this time. But if you've got more venting that you need to do, you can do it in the usual places. Instagram and X at Type 40 Doctor Who. Hit us up with whatever. Join join us in the Type 40 Facebook group. That's exploded with debate in the recent days, as you could imagine. Debate and creativity in the same way, with lots of fan art and fan projects and headcanon too. So all of that is in the equation, as well as conspiracy theories too. So if you have a great conspiracy theory, bring that to the Type 40 Facebook group. We can all have some fun with that as well. Who knows? The truth may be out there after all. And if you have any feedback of any kind, constructive feedback, or you just want to vent, you have any ideas for debates you'd like to hear us have in the future, anything at all, get in touch with us through SpeakPipe. The link is in the description, as always. More Doctor Who talk coming up, because this is still what we do, whether it's on the telly or not. You know, I always said we were through to the bitter end. Turns out that the bitter end was over a year ago. Just none of us ever knew. Understandably, we're quite angry about that. We're quite furious at times. And just as Gary said earlier on, we brought back Type 40 Extra the other day for this special edition, Type 40 Extra Furious, with a hand-picked panel there getting together for a Noel wasn't there, for a no-holds-barred discussion and confessional, really, a therapy session about the happenings over the last week. So there's the rabbi from another planet, the great Bowles Trek, he's there too, our friend Chris, of course, he's always Chris to us, and Ian Diaz, lots of people over there talking through our reactions, I suppose, to that update from the BBC, and speculating not only about what's gone wrong and how bloody furious we could be if we allowed ourselves to be, but speculating about any possibilities there could be for a cure to Doctor Who's ills. So go and check that out, Type 40 Extra, over in the playlists. The rest of Type 40 Lives there too, of course, our regular news shows and all those deep dives, more on the way. Keep a lookout for that if you are notified. So smash the cloister bell to make sure you don't miss when we go live next, because anything could happen in the coming months. Type 40 podcast is on our home feed, type40.podbean.com, and at the podcatcher of your choice. Just go and seek it out. Is that all the plugging done? Is that all the housekeeping out of the way? Okay, we're done. This poor girl, trapped in amber, Matt, for over 12 months, Billy Piper. I think we can finally let her go. What do you think?
That is going to haunt Russell for the rest of his life.
You reckon? I think you could be right. Yep.
Lucky you didn't go there, that's for sure.
There'll be more.
Just imagine how much we actually escaped, you know, the whole thing with Carol Ann Ford, everything, you know. But for those really, really good fans that want to see what happens next, you'll have the CBBB show coming up soon.
You'll be watching, obviously, Matt. I know you're a big animation fan. It's
absolutely, yeah.
It's going to have to go some way to measure up to Bluey. Is my take on that. As our real life time traveler, Matt, thank you for straddling the time zones and gamely stepping into the breach to join us. I thought you'd have quite a lot to say. It must be hard. In all sincerity, it's been hard for us all to watch this. I think, regardless of when we stopped watching, when we stopped caring, seeing that update come last week was solemn reading, and it will remain so for a few weeks. So we'll be continuing to program sensitively on the topic. We won't be having the same discussions over and over again. That's not how it works at Type 40. But there's plenty to mine for. There's plenty of scope. And I'm sure over the coming months, there'll be more than enough creativity and cause for celebration and exploration of the Whoniverse that we can keep fueled by, and that will, I think, between us all, act as somewhat of a white pill, Gary, because Doctor Who remains my happy place.
Mm-hmm. I mean, look, the show survived for how many decades without all of this? So no, I mean, we became lifelong fans because of all of that. There's plenty still to talk about and embrace and love, and yeah, I think we have a lot of exciting plans for everybody that, you know, is more than just the oh hello.
I think I think it has not affected me as much, probably because I've been somewhat detached from the series because, as you know, Dan, I've jumped in and out of the series in the last, well, since 2017. So I missed an entire era, but I think I'm going to handle it quite well. Not like the last time where I was just waiting to see when the next series is coming. So
Can you guys
count myself lucky.
Can you guys believe that? I just realized. Can you guys believe that it's only been like 5 days since this broke? Doesn't it? Seriously, doesn't it seem like a lot longer that we've been talking about?
It seems like longer. I'm with Billy. It seems. I think because even though I think we were surprised by the exact content of the announcement, it obviously was a long time coming. The death of Doctor Who has been a long and protracted one, and that's why it feels like a blessed relief.
Yeah.
We've sort of been prepared for it, you know.
I think so. Even if we weren't aware of it, I think so.
And the fact that they were saying, "Oh no, it's coming back," it was like it probably makes us more anxious. Because we were like, oh no, what are you going to do with it next? Because we've seen what you've already done with it. I don't see anything changing. So, because it's so final now, and it is final, whether they like it or not, it is final for the time being. For at least another, I'm hoping another 7-8 years, we can just have a little bit of a break enough to have a think back of all the things that we enjoyed out of the series, and yeah, it is a blessed relief. It really is.
What I'm hoping is that the next lead creative figure, whether they are a producer, a showrunner, a head writer, whatever badge they wear, whatever role they take, I hope it's somebody young, full of ideas and energy. I hope it's someone who has a vision for the show, an eye for its genuine appeal, its constituent parts, and how they connect, and most importantly, the family audience that have been so let down, more so than even the fandom. There is a lot to talk about this coming Thursday already. Further stories I've no doubt will break, and more people may begin to speak to. So we'll be back this coming Thursday. Make sure you're notified. Thursday from 7:30 p.m. for the Big Who. Don't miss it. This is Type 40 Live, where there's no party lines, no beef, and no bullshit. We just take your comments, your rants, and your raves. All opinions are welcome, and we put it all in the machine. And then we try and come out of it with some answers after a couple of hours and send you off into the weekend feeling, you know, even if we can't make everything better, we can make it just that little bit brighter and make some sense of the madness, Gary. I'm a little, you think, well, what can possibly happen in 2 or 3 days? But, you know.
Somebody who can't resist talking, no names, will undoubtedly say something very discussable in the next 72 hours.
Thank you for joining us, everybody. Thank you, as always, to Charlotte Shields. She'll be back on Thursday too. To Matt Pott, again, thank you for getting up, mate. Great to see you. And I'm glad you're not suffering too much, although you are dressed all in black, I think. So you're obviously in mourning for Doctor.
I'm freezing. We're in the middle of winter here.
Or it could be that.
I'm near Antarctica, for goodness sake.
And Gary Akers too, mate. Thank you again for your company. And everybody in the live chat, don't miss the Big Who this coming Thursday at 7:30 p.m. But that's it for now from all of us at Type 40, where we always have the time. If you have the space. Is it getting better? Might be getting better. In time. Bye-bye.
Yeah.